Racing Network presents Auto Racing 85. Auto Racing 85 this week in South Carolina, Darlington, South Carolina to be exact, and the Transouth 500. And once again, April showers are threatening. We have about a 90% chance of rain today. There has been a few drizzle areas located around the racetrack, but it isn't raining right now. The temperature is 63 degrees. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bob Jenkins along with Larry Newber. Well, this track has been known as several things. The Lady in Black, the track too tough to tame. Whatever you call her, she is indeed a very unique racetrack.
Very unique indeed. I'll tell you, race drivers have a way of capturing headlines. And no matter what racetrack you go to, the race drivers are always the biggest part of the story. But not here. Everybody is still talking about the racetrack. It's not just a reputation, it's fact. It's here today.
On the pole for today's race will be Bill Elliott alongside David Pearson, but the talk is not who the favorite, but the fact that so many drivers are capable of winning this event here.
Well, a lot of the other races on the trail, we've almost pre-conceded the event to Bill Elliott, but even though he's the fastest qualifier here, there's no thought of that. Dale Earnhardt has been very hot lately. Neil Bonnet has led a lot of races this year. Ron Bouchard is feeling real racy. Darrell Waltrip, of course, is always a threat, but the point is there is no real clear-cut favorite in terms of the opinions up and down pit road.
There'll be a lot of activity on pit road today. We have two pit reporters working that area. Let's go first to Jack Arute.
Well, Bob and Larry, if there's no clear-cut favorite for today's race, one has to look back to the history books. And the man that is second in the all-time victory list behind Richard Petty is David Pearson, and he's also won 7 Transouth 500s. The last one came in the car that he's been reunited with for 1985, but that was back in 1980. He's now behind the wheel of a Haas Ellington prepared machine, and he's planked the car on the outside pole. So if you're a student of history, one might want to look at David Pearson as a possible favorite today. Let's go down now for some other observations from pit road to Dick Berggren.
Thanks, Jack. The weather has really shuffled the deck here at Darlington since yesterday's last practice session. It's rained, it's gotten colder, and all the chassis setups that were perfect yesterday are not perfect anymore today. The mechanics have changed springs, they've changed chassis adjustments, they've altered carburetors, and they've even changed the timing in some of these engines. Nobody really knows what's going to happen when the green flag drops. This is going to be wide open.
All right, thank you, Dick, and thank you, Jackie. The Transouth 500 is brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? And by STP Corporation. On the world's racetracks and on the world's roads, depend on STP, your car care company. And by Honda Motorcycles, inventors of the ATC three-wheeler. Honda, follow the leader. We'll be back with a look at the starting lineup for the Transouth 500 from Darlington in a moment. Been started along pit road, and we're just a few minutes away now from the start of the Transouth 500 here at Darlington International Raceway. The balloons have been released into the overcast skies here in South Carolina, and we take a look now at the specifics regarding this racetrack. It is 1.366 miles in length. The straightaways are 1,200 feet. The banking in turns 1 and 2 is 21 degrees. In turns 3 and 4, the banking is 22 degrees, and the racetrack is 65 feet wide, but that's a very deceptive figure because only a very small part of that is actually the racing groove and an area that the cars can run in.
Bob, not only the statistics tell you an interesting story, but there's just something about the aura of this racetrack. It was built a long time ago, like 1950, and it's a combination of it's sort of a lesser degree of banking, the length of the racetrack, and how hard the walls are for that matter, but it's just a combination of factors that have kind of collapsed together, and it gives you this very narrow racetrack, despite the fact that we really have about 90 feet of pavement in the corners.
Well, it was drizzling just a few minutes ago. I think we're going to be plagued by drizzle throughout the afternoon, and although there is a 90% chance of rain, I'm pretty optimistic that the heavy rain is going to stay away from us and we can get this 367 lap race in. There is David Pearson in the Chattanooga Chew car. He'll be outside of row number 1 alongside the pole sitter for this race, Bill Elliott.
Well, one thing also for everybody to keep in mind, we've got to go, I guess, 183 laps or so for this race to be officially declared the finish. So keep that figure in mind. If the rain clouds begin to gather and we get up to about 150 laps in this race, the crew's got to start making some decisions because lap 183 might be the checkered flag.
All right, the cars begin to move away now for their first of a couple of warm-up and pace laps. And now let's look at the starting lineup for today's race. On the pole in car number 9, the Coors Ford from Dawsonville, Georgia, qualifying at 157.454. Bill Elliott alongside David Pearson in the Chattanooga Chew Chevrolet. Second row, in the Piedmont Airlines Chevrolet car 44, Terry Labonte, and Benny Parsons car 55, the Copenhagen Chevrolet. In the third row, the Nationwide Auto Parts Pontiac car 75, Lake Speed, and Ron Bouchard in the Valvoline Buick car 47. In the fourth row, Neil Bonnet in the Budweiser Chevrolet car number 12, and Dale Earnhardt in the Wrangler Jean Chevrolet car 3. In the fifth row, Ricky Rudd in the Motorcraft Ford car 15, and Buddy Baker car number 88, the Liquid Wrench Bullfrog Knits Oldsmobile. Sixth row, Jeff Bodine in the Levi Garrett Chevrolet car number 5, and the Skoll Bandit Chevrolet driven by Harry Gant car 33. Seventh row, car number 11, the Budweiser Chevrolet with Darrell Waltrip, and Dave Marcus in the AEL Rents Oldsmobile. Then Tim Richmond in car 27 in the old Milwaukee Pontiac, and Phil Parsons in the Skoll Bandit Chevy. Joe Ruttman starts in the next row in the Folgers Coffee Chevrolet, and Richard Petty in the STP Pontiac. Then in the 10th row, Bobby Hill in the Trap Rock Industries Chevrolet, and Rusty Wallace in the Alugard Pontiac. In the 11th row, Cale Yarborough and Kyle Petty. And in row number 12, Bobby Allison, car 22, and Morgan Shepherd, car 1. 13th row, Ken Schrader and Mike Alexander. 14th row, Trevor Boys and Slick Johnson. Ken Reagan and J.D. McDuffie start in row 15. Connie Saylor and Jimmy Means in the 16th row. Then Clark Dwyer and Don Hume. Eddie Burschwale and Buddy Arrington in row 18. Bobby Waywack and Dick May in row 19. And Jeff Booker and Elton Dotson in row number 20. Our in-car camera is with Benny Parsons, car number 55. We'll try to establish radio communication with them.
Benny, this is Larry Newber up on ESPN Control. What are we watching for here on the first start of the race?
Right now I'm looking at the gauges, Larry, to make sure that everything is okay.
Benny, what are some of the things that people at home can watch for? This can be a very narrow track, particularly on that first lap.
Tell you what, I'm kind of concerned about it.
Well, right now the field is moving into turn number 3. We're going to let Benny get back to work because we're going to go green flag probably in about 20 seconds.
All right, Benny, good luck to you and the other 39 competitors in today's Transouth 500. There's Benny starting alongside of Terry Labonte in row number 2. Overcast skies here, the temperature in the 60s, but good racing conditions really if the rain will hold off. The pace car is into the pit area. The field comes out of turn number 4 looking for the green flag, and they get it. The Transouth 500 is underway from Darlington. It's a narrow groove into turns 1 and 2. The lead really has not been established by anybody at this point. David Pearson had the slight advantage going into turn 2, but now it's a 3-car race, 3 abreast down the backstretch, and Terry Labonte, like a blast out of a cannon, shoots by into the lead, leaving Bill Elliott in second position and Pearson in third. Off of turn 4 for the completion of lap 1. Now, Bill Elliott made a challenge there as they crossed the starting-finish line for lap number 1. However, Terry Labonte holds on to the lead. Elliott is right behind. Then David Pearson and Benny Parsons. In the 5th position is Ron Bouchard. And the rest of the field behind that. There is Labonte, who made a great move coming out of turn number 2 down the backstretch to pass both Elliott and Pearson to take the lead.
Well, keep this in mind that Bill Elliott has been close to dominant, I guess you would say, in the super speedways. He's going for the lead right now. He takes the lead. He will not be credited with leading that lap because he should have been going into turn number 1. But here's something to consider. The 2 races that Elliott has led this year, he has won. So is this an omen for Bill Elliott? A good one?
Already already two leaders in this race in the first 3 laps of the event. Bill Elliott has taken over command from Terry Labonte. Here they come out of turn number 4 to complete lap number 3. Car moving slowly down the second turn area, and in fact in the pits in the backstretch is Trevor Boyes in car number 98. We'll watch that situation for you as we keep our eye on the action on the track. And we're right beside Benny Parsons now as he comes out of turn number 2 and down the backstretch. You can see him following the David Pearson car. Now they go into turn number 3, dipping low and then letting the car drift high. Benny Parsons running in 4th position.
Well, the story on Trevor Boyes is that he was given a black flag for jumping at the start, so NASCAR officials spotted what they consider to be an infraction. They've had Trevor come in for a stop-and-go penalty.
Well, it's a little better start for Benny Parsons than last year when he was on the pole for the race and got a little bit sideways coming out of turn number 2 and never led the event. But Benny hanging in there now in 4th position as the lead continues to be held by Bill Elliott. And now we turn the camera around and see what's going on behind him. There you can see Ron Bouchard in the Valvoline Buick following Benny Parsons. And behind Ron Bouchard is Lake Speed in car number 75, and then Dale Earnhardt.
Bob, you heard Dick Berggren tell us that a lot of these crews have made significant changes on the chassis setup on these cars after yesterday's practice or during yesterday's practice, the last one, because they anticipated weather exactly like this. Now, it's the kind of setup that not very many people have had much of a chance to practice at all week long. I think that's one of the reasons why things are relatively calm right now. Everybody is sitting in the seat, seeing how the car feels, making sure they're comfortable, because a lot of them are running basically green race cars.
There's a shot of Bill Elliott from Dawsonville, Georgia, the winner of the Daytona 500 earlier this year and also the winner at Atlanta. In 5 starts this year, he has 2 victories. Is the only 2-time winner on the trail this year. Make that
Dale
one
Earnhardt,
of 2
yeah.
drivers. Dale Earnhardt, of course, picking up a victory last weekend at Bristol, Tennessee, becoming also a 2-time winner this year. And Earnhardt also was strong in the late model sportsman race yesterday until mechanical problems forced him out. So we'll keep an eye on Dale Earnhardt today. There's the advantage now that Bill Elliott has gotten over Terry Labonte in just the first 7 laps. Let's go down to Dick Berggren.
Good story on David Pearson. He's really worried about his brakes in this race. All week long he's had brake trouble. In fact, he contacted the wall hard with brake trouble. They changed everything, calipers, master cylinders, lines, and all of it. Thought they had it fixed, and yesterday, in the middle of one of the last practice sessions, he hit the brakes just to test them. The pedal went right to the floor. He said, "We don't know what's wrong with this thing, but I sure hope when I hit the brakes today at Darlington, they work." Bob?
I would think that the Darlington International Raceway is not a track where you would want to run any length of time without any brakes. Right now, Pearson is in 4th spot.
Well, I'll tell you the big story here. We're going to go down to talk to Hoss Ellington, but it's Bill Elliott. More on that later, but here's Dick with Hoss Ellington.
Actually, it's Jack Arute with Hoss Ellington. Hoss, we've heard reports that during qualifying you had a brake problem. Talking to David in the early laps, are the brakes okay?
Right now, we don't see any problem. We don't see any problem right now, Jack. I just hoping, we can go all day without having any problem. We'll be in good shape.
What do you do to remedy a situation like that if it develops here?
Well, I don't know. It's going to be hard to do anything here. The track's small. We just hope we put everything brand new on it. And, we had brake problem all week. And yesterday afternoon, we had pretty good shape. So we'll be all right today, I think.
Well, you can be sure the whole crew has their fingers crossed down here. Back up to Bob and Larry.
Hoss Ellington of the David Pearson crew. David now in 3rd position behind Terry Labonte and the leader of the race, Bill Elliott. And Elliott is really lengthening his advantage. He is coming out of turn number 2 right there down the backstretch. Terry Labonte is about a half a straightaway behind in 2nd position. It's a good start for Bill Elliott in the number 9 Coors Ford. Bill qualifying at an average of 157.454 miles an hour, about a half a mile an hour faster than 2nd fastest qualifier David Pearson.
Well, Bob, it's still very early, but I'll tell you something. I am really surprised at how easily Elliott has moved to the front and how much distance he's put on himself over 2nd and 3rd place running Labonte and David Pearson. We said earlier that there really was no clear-cut favorite in this race because of the domination of the track, but Elliott right now, whoa, he's getting the job done.
11 of 367 laps are completed, and the start of today's Transouth 500 has been brought to you by Coney. makers of shock absorbers and suspension kits for all performance cars. Coney, proven superior. Back live at Darlington, South Carolina for today's Transouth 500 in a moment. Right now it's Bill Elliott leading with Labonte second, then Pearson, Parsons, and Bouchard. The race fans are watching Bill Elliott in the lead here at the Transouth 500 in Darlington. Labonte still running in second, and David Pearson is third. Career wins at Darlington? Well, it's a runaway for David Pearson, who has won 10 times on this racetrack. Cale Yarborough and Bobby Ellison have each won 5 times, and Darrell Waltrip and Fireball Roberts have 4 wins here at this racetrack. There is Cale Yarborough in car number 28, who started 21st in this race, and he is now in 20th position. However, we have noticed some smoke coming from the bottom of that race car in the last few laps, and although Cale has picked off a position in the last couple of laps, getting around Richard Petty, he definitely is smoking out there on the track.
Well, Bob, here's the interesting thing. He's running on the racetrack with Richard Petty and Bobby Allison. There you have the leading winner of all time in Grand National Stock Car Racing, and the 2 guys who are tied for 3rd place all-time wins. We're talking about 350 wins total, running around 20th to 22nd right now.
There you can see 81 career victories for Cale Yarborough. Benny Parsons, meanwhile, is bidding for a 3rd place here. David Pearson still in 3rd place, but you can see from our in-car camera the distance between himself and 2 cars get by Benny Parsons. Earnhardt and Lake Speed both go to the inside, and now so does Ricky Rudd. So perhaps a problem with Benny Parsons' car. We'll continue to watch it. He's off of the corner and off the lane straight away. He's dropped back to 6th place now after running in 4th.
Bob, a duo that I have been watching the last couple of laps have been Earnhardt and Lake Speed. They have hooked up in a draft. Now, there is some effect of the draft here, not as much as on the super high bank racetrack, but you can really get a draft here. But Earnhardt and Lake Speed have been together for the last 10 laps and really picking up some ground. They have been moving toward the front. They have been working through a pack of cars. There you see Earnhardt, the yellow car, ducking down to the inside. He's gone around Lake Speed. There is Lake Speed, followed by Ricky Rudd. There's a pack of cars, about 15 there, running 5th to 20th, basically, and they have been the 2 hot shoes in that group. Earnhardt in the yellow and blue 3, and Lake Speed in the black, white, and yellow Nationwide number 75.
Well, now Dale Earnhardt is right on the back bumper of David Pearson and looking for a 3rd place position here. Earnhardt looks inside once again, coming out of turn number 3 into turn 4. Pearson moves high, and Earnhardt goes low on the racetrack, and Dale Earnhardt from Kannapolis, North Carolina, has moved into 3rd place behind Terry Labonte and the leader of our race, Bill Elliott. So David Pearson drops back to 4th, and in 5th spot then is Lake Speed in car number 75.
Well, it's been a real struggle for Dale Earnhardt, Richard Childress, and crew for the past couple of years. The wins have come, well, almost as hard as wins for Northwestern University have come in football, but this year, things seem to be together. Remember, we've had 5 races in that blue and yellow car. There in the left part of your screen have won 2 of those 5 races already.
There is Cale Yarborough once again, who is in 20th position after having started 21st. Now, he blew an engine in the first day of qualifying and was not among the top 20 qualifiers. That's the reason that he started in 21st position. He was the fastest qualifier in 2nd day time trials. So Cale Yarborough continues to try to move up through traffic, and earlier this weekend we had a chance to talk with Cale.
It would be an understatement to say that the 1985 season for the Hardee's team has not gone the way everybody had hoped. Engine problems, changing over. Are you discouraged?
Well, you know, it's a major change when you change from, as we did, a Chevrolet team to a Ford team, and what else? Entire Hardee's team worked day and night over the winter, and it just takes a long time to get everything set like you want it set, and that's what's happened here. I think we just we've been out of time since the last race of last season, but every week now we're catching up a little bit, and we haven't had the kind of season I would like to have had up to this point. But I have no doubts that before this season's over that we're going to have the kind of season we thought we'd have. We're going to win some races.
This is Cale Yarborough's 4th start of the year. As you saw on the graphic there, his best finish was 7th at Rockingham. Aside from that, a 36th at Daytona and a 22nd at Atlanta.
Bob, they've led a couple of races this year, but boy, it's just been so different, a marked departure from the way it's been the last couple of seasons.
Bill Elliott continues the early domination of the Trans-South 500, now with almost a full straightaway length advantage on second place Terry Labonte, as he goes high to pass the number 05 Newsom Racing 4, driven by Slick Johnson from Florence, South Carolina.
Well, Bill Elliott has been a very interesting figure on the Grand National Trail for the past couple of years. He almost came from nowhere, but the last couple of years have been very profitable.
The biggest concern that you have about Darlington?
Survival. You know, the way everybody's gotten now, there's a lot of pressure on a lot of people to run good. You know, and the thing about here is it's so easy to get in trouble with this racetrack. And I'm always concerned about everybody trying to get a little bit too rambunctious at the first of the race.
Fortunately, we haven't had anybody getting rambunctious here in the first 26 laps, as we have been all green to this point. Let's hope we can run the entire race that way. Elliott crossing the start-finish line, completing lap number 27. Still running in third position is Dale Earnhardt. Then in fourth place is Ricky Rudd now. And fifth spot belongs to Tim Richmond. Bill Elliott from Dawsonville, Georgia. There is Tim Richmond in the number 27 Old Milwaukee Pontiac. And right behind him is Ricky Rudd. So Tim Richmond has moved into fourth position as he battles with Ricky Rudd.
Bobby's made a big move. You can see how much distance he rapidly put between himself and Ricky Rudd. He started in 15th position. Now he's running in fourth. Now remember, here's the guy. I think he still owns the track record here, does he not? He sat on the pole here. He had a bad day the day that he set that new track record. He lost an engine in the very first lap, caused a big mad scramble. But Richmond likes this racetrack. Talking to one of the crew members earlier this week, and they said that Richmond really likes 3 and 4. He's the kind of guy that the car's going to be just a little bit loose. He can sail around 3 and 4 almost wide open, but he likes this racetrack. It's a physical, demanding racetrack. Some athletic skills are required, and it seems to fit right into Tim Richmond's hand. Richmond likes Darlington, where a lot of the other drivers, well, it's a race you got to go to, but they just as soon go to say North Wilkesboro.
Last year in the Southern 500, the fall race here at Darlington, Tim Richmond finished in second place, and in the Trans-South 500, last year he was 34th. Now let's go down to Jack Arute, who's in the Bill Elliott pit.
Well, it's Dick Bergman in the Bill Elliott pit.
Okay.
We'll get it right pretty soon.
I hope so. The car that's in the lead was thoroughly trashed a few weeks ago at Rockingham. Ernie Elliott, what did you have to do to the car that's in the lead now in order to get it back to the lead?
I didn't understand.
What did you have to do to the car between Rockingham and here to get it to run so well? How much work?
Well, you know, at Rockingham, the car was damaged pretty badly, so, you know, we had to replace the front snout on the car, all the right-hand frame rails, the right-hand bars. You know, basically the right side of the car was destroyed, so, you know, we just finished the car like 1 o'clock Wednesday night before we came here on Thursday, so we really didn't have a chance to work anything out on the car, and we were surprised that it really ran as good as it did.
They obviously did their work well. The car is 2/3 brand new. A snout means they cut it off at the firewall, so everything from the firewall forward is brand new.
It's working very well, Dick, in the first stages of this race, as he has opened up quite a lead between himself and Dale Earnhardt. As we're once again with Benny Parsons, we will be back with more live coverage of the Trans-South 500 on Auto Racing 85 in just a moment. Continuing coverage of the best in auto racing on ESPN this week in Darlington, South Carolina for the Trans-South 500. 36 laps completed. The leader is that man, Bill Elliott. Second place is Dale Earnhardt. Then Terry Labonte. Fourth is Tim Richmond. Fifth is Ricky Rudd. Sixth is Lake Speed. Seventh is Benny Parsons. In eighth position is Neil Bonnet. Ninth is Ron Bouchard. 10th position is David Pearson. And 11th is Darrell Waltrip. 12th spot goes to Jeff Bodine. 13th is Harry Gant. 14th is Buddy Baker. And in 15th spot is Joe Ruttman. We have had no yellows to this point with 37 laps completed. And it's really quite unusual.
Bob, we're going to play this game about who is the fastest on the track again right now. I'm ready to say it's Earnhardt. Earnhardt is coming on. I want to tell you, even though Elliott has led this race essentially since lap 2 or 3, he still has not put a lap on the guys who are running in the top 20 positions. Richard Petty and Bobby Allison, believe it or not, are back there. Yarborough, by the way, has made a little bit of a move. But see the yellow car? Here comes Dale Earnhardt, and we are going to have our first substantial challenge under green flag other than the early laps for the lead. Earnhardt is really moving.
Well, Bill Elliott had about a full straightaway length lead on Dale Earnhardt about 10 laps ago, but there is the interval now. Earnhardt, last week's winner at Bristol, Tennessee, is on the move once again. There is David Pearson in car number 21, who is falling back dramatically and is currently 16th. Now, he started second, and we had him in 10th position 2 laps ago, so he has dropped back 6 spots in the last 2 laps. And look who is about to move into 16th spot. That is Cale Yarborough, who started 21st.
Now, there are a bunch of wins there, 81 wins and over 105, I think 105 wins for David Pearson. Almost 200 wins on the screen right now. Now, remember that Pearson, starting up front, that is also an old car. It was one of the first downsized cars back in 1981. So not only is it a relatively new car to him, but it's also an old race car compared to many of these.
Now let's find out what's going on in the minds of the Dale Earnhardt crew as we go down to Jackaroo.
Bob, Dick Bergeron may have made a very good observation at the front of the telecast when he said that the drivers and the crew chiefs are concerned about weather. The situation in the Earnhardt crew is that they felt they'd better go to the front as he has right now and take the lead because they don't feel this race will go the distance. So they're gambling to run flat out and belly to the ground for the first half of the race.
That is exactly what has happened. Dale Earnhardt with a nice move off the second corner and down the backstretch. The meat in the sandwich, so to speak, as he went between a slower car and Bill Elliott. And Dale Earnhardt has moved into the top spot. That's now our 3rd lead change among 3 drivers.
As we watch the 2 leaders, the guy who's running in 3rd, who has been pretty solidified there, is Terry Labonte. Now, Labonte is not moving up on Elliott. Earnhardt got around Terry and quickly disposed of him. Remember, Earnhardt was racing with Blake Speed earlier, but Labonte is not making a move up. So right now, these are the only 2 guys, as they put on 1 lap on Kenny Reagan, these are the only 2 guys who appear to be joustling for the lead. Dale Earnhardt at number 3, and Bill Elliott, remember, he's call it almost undefeated in the super speedways in 1985. The red Coors number 9.
Well, Bill Elliott led laps 3 through 41, a total of 38 laps, but now that lead is held by Dale Earnhardt from Kannapolis, North Carolina, 32-year-old, and here is Tim Richmond and Ricky Rudd battling for position.
Well, Ricky Rudd looked like he was in the position to win last week. Remember, we got that new tire rule where under any pit stop, you're only allowed to change 2. You got to make a decision. And Ricky agreed that he differed into his opinion as to what they should do with his crew chief, and it may have been the difference in the race.
4th and 5th position battle here. Tim Richmond, car 27, and Ricky Rudd in number 15, the Motorcraft Ford. And, of course, Tim Richmond in the old Milwaukee Pontiac, 4th and 5th spot.
Well, Richmond seems, Bob, have not slowed down, but he has pulled back a little bit from his pace. You know, he knows on the radio just exactly how far Earnhardt and Elliott are ahead of him. And really, at this point in the race, even though we've got threatening weather, I would imagine that Richmond feels, well, I can't catch those guys right now with the setup I currently have. So I've done well. I've improved my position considerably. So let me kind of stay right here. Keep those guys within sight within a half a lap so I don't get lapped. And maybe when we make a pit stop and we all change tires, maybe I'll have the hotter setup after that. Of course, 1 yellow flag will wipe out any length of lead as long as it's not more than 1 lap.
We have had no yellows to this point, so when can we anticipate the first green pit stop if we don't have a yellow there?
Well, we should be looking at these sometime in the late 60s in terms of laps, or early 70s. We'll go 74 laps is 100 miles here, so we're not quite on them right now, but sometime I would say within the next 15 minutes if we stay under green flag.
Well, Ricky Rudd was very competitive in that race at Bristol, Tennessee. He raced with Dale Earnhardt most of the afternoon, but he lost it, and we asked him about that.
When you are beat, like you were at Bristol by Dale Earnhardt, and in the fashion that you were, do you think about it on the ride home? Do you talk over that race again?
Well, I've probably run that race 100 times in my mind since I left that racetrack, and it all comes out to the same thing. I've probably made a mistake on the last series of pit stops. Bud Moore, the crew chief, and Doug Williams, they wanted to change the inside tires. I thought that our best shot would be with the right side tires. We slowed down about a half a second a lap at the end of that race because of that tire change. And, you know, if anything, I'm probably a little bit hard on myself saying, you know, why did I make that decision? And a lot of it goes back with experience, and a lot of it is lack of experience with this new tire rule. And the only thing you can do is say, well, maybe next time I learned a lesson that time and come back to next race. Hopefully we'll be in the same shot this year, this position at this race at Darlington, and it'd be very fortunate if we could be. And maybe I wouldn't make a mistake the second time.
Right now, Ricky Rudd in 5th position here in the Transouth 500. Let's go down to Dick Bergeron as we watch Harry Gant, who has come in for the first pit stop. They are changing rubber on the right side of that car. He pulls out a quick pit stop. Now let's go down to Dick Bergeron.
Well, there's a new tire rule in 1985 in NASCAR, Bob, and it says that under a yellow flag circumstance, you can only change 2 tires. You used to be able to change 4. So the question is, do you change right side tires? Do you change left side tires? That question is especially important here at Darlington, where there's been some new paving. And talking to crew chiefs, they're going to have to figure out what the proper strategy is as this race unfolds. Bob?
All right, well, it looks like that Harry had a serious tire problem. That's the reason that he came in, but they replaced that bad tire, and now he's back out there. And there were your first 2, Dale Earnhardt. There is the tire that Harry Gant had to replace, and you can see how it's chewed up pretty good.
Yeah, I would say he probably ran over some debris on the racetrack, Bob, and he got a little slit in the thing, and then, of course, the tire just disintegrated at the high speeds, up to maybe 170 miles an hour, certainly the mid-160 range on the straightaways here. At Darlington, you have to slow down in the turns, maybe to 120 miles an hour, but, you know, it turns a couple of revolutions at that speed. Anything really above 10, it can be pretty rough on a piece of rubber.
Well, we have 21 cars on the lead lap at this point. 21 cars on the lead lap. Labonte in 3rd, Richmond in 4th, Rudd in 5th, Lake Speed in now 6th position. 7th spot is Neil Bonnet. 8th is Benny Parsons, who started 3rd, or make that 4th. In 9th spot is Darrell Waltrip, and 10th is Jeff Bodine. Those are your top 10 with 21 cars on the lap, and 51 laps completed. Still no yellows. And that brings up an interesting question. Is it the fact that the racetrack is in better shape and easier to handle a race car?
There comes Bill Elliott, Bob. There comes Bill to the inside of Dale. It was kind of interesting. After Dale passed him, Elliott never lost hold of him, and now we're going to have a little bit of a battle for the lead.
Well, Earnhardt did not particularly like the move that Bill Elliott put on him, and he made a bid to go back into the lead, but now Elliott has about a car length advantage as they move into turn number 1. So again, a change of leader. That's our 4th lead change of the day.
Bob, getting back to your question, I felt in the beginning that everybody they were playing cautious, but maybe letting off the accelerator just a little bit more than usual because so many setups have been changed. But I don't think that's the case now. Everybody knows what the race car feels like. And I think we're just having a good race. Just the way it has evolved here. We haven't lost any engines. Nobody has touched the wall and developed that famous or infamous Darlington stripe. So things are going along real well. It's simply a matter of that. I don't think it's any of the elements or any machinery that's causing this smooth race. The race drivers do a pretty good country job.
So many times a racetrack with a reputation like this is so respected by the drivers that they really take it easy out there and do be careful, and I think that's exactly what we're seeing right now. Let's go down to Jack Arute, who's with Travis Carter.
Travis, a blistered tire this early in the race, does it concern you? So what the real problem was the tire developed a leak. The air pressure leak down, it started to push. That's what blistered the shoulders. No problem with the tire. That basically went flat and then blistered it.
The report from Harry thus far, is it a good track condition?
Well, everything's pretty good. Our situation now is we need for all the cars to pit before the caution comes out to keep us back in the same lap.
Well, that's the story from the Harry Gant pit.
Harry Gant, of course, was the winner of our late model sportsman race yesterday as he took over for an ill Jack Ingram. And there is Lake Speed, who is in 6th spot in the number 75. Nationwide Auto Parts Pontiac. He, of course, was the 2nd place finisher at the Daytona 500. There's Lake Speed from Jackson, Mississippi.
Well, Tim Richmond, you just saw him slipping out of the screen there on your monitors at home. Richmond is making a move and apparently has gone into, yeah, he has gone into third position. There he is, that red car. Labonte is the blue car. Ricky Rudd is right behind Labonte. That's third, fourth, and fifth. Labonte's slowing just a little bit, but I tell you got to watch him for about 10 laps to make it noticeably. But Richmond has been running real good all day long, and right now he's probably feeling pretty confident.
And Cale Yarborough has stopped for a pit stop. He is replacing rubber on the right side of that car, and they're filling it up with fuel. Quick tire change, at least in the front end of the car. Now the car moves down off his jacks, and Cale Yarborough moves back out onto the racetrack in the Hardee's Ford.
Well, Bob, it's a little early for pit stops, but Cale's in the position where they're making a guess there just isn't going to be any yellow flags before the first session of caution flags. He's unhappy with the setup, so they decided to take a chance. If they pit now, maybe they can change that setup a little sooner. If everybody has to pit under green, he may not lose a lap.
Cale Yarborough lives just a few miles down the road here in Timminsville, South Carolina, and he calls this his home racetrack. There is Bill Elliott, who is about to pass Richard Petty and put him a lap down. Elliott, the leader of the race, and right ahead of Richard Petty is Bobby Allison. So we watch the cars move through quarter number 3 as Richard Petty moves high on the track and allows the 2 faster cars to go underneath him. So Richard Petty goes a lap down on the field. We'll be back with more live coverage of the Transouth 500 from Darlington, South Carolina. Bill Elliott leads with Earnhardt second. The top 10 with 57 laps completed. Elliott the leader, followed by Dale Earnhardt, then Tim Richmond, Terry Labonte, and Ricky Rudd. In 6th spot is Lake Speed, then Neil Bonnet, Benny Parsons, Darrell Waltrip, and Jeff Bodine. We have been noticing Terry Labonte a little bit off of the pace, at least off of the pace that he said earlier. And Jack, you're down there with information on the possible problem with Terry Labonte.
Yes, I am, Bob, and the situation may be the same as Harry Gant's. We checked with the crew, and they're concerned that the right side tires may have gone away on Terry Labonte's car. The reason they've elected not to bring him in, though, is normal, regular scheduled pit stops are coming up in, anywhere from 7 to 15 laps from now. So they feel they can tough it out and hopefully make it to the stop and make the exchange. A lot of the cars are making their way down to pit road now. First set of green flag stops for the Transouth 500.
Jack, is anybody talking about the weather down there? We seem to have reached a plateau where everything seems to be pretty calm with weather. It's almost not a factor now.
I still think, Larry, that a lot of the crews are gambling that this thing will not go the distance. They're looking at the drizzle. It continues to drizzle here, but not hard enough to cause any problems on the racetrack. And when you look up at the skies, they are dark and foreboding. So I think depending on what side of the coin you are, whether you are going to go only race to the halfway mark or go for the distance, you're still hoping that you've chosen the right way.
Well, we're watching Terry Labonte on the racetrack running in 4th spot. And several cars have made pit stops. Buddy Baker was in for a stop a lap ago. Bobby Hillin Jr. from Midland, Texas, pulling out of the pits right now. So I think we're going to see the top runners pitting here in the next at least 10 laps. 63 laps completed right now. Hillin having a problem getting out of the pit area. And as a matter of fact, he's pulling that car behind the wall as we continue to look at Terry Labonte, who has moved into the points lead in the Winston Cup battle.
And Bob, as we saw just before we went to the last break, there's Bobby Hillin, who has come to a stop inside of the just before the number 1 corner. Apparently he feels he has a problem that's terminal. He's unbuckling and getting out of the car. Bobby Allison and Richard Petty have gone 1 lap down under green flag conditions, so keep that in mind. Here are 2 cagey veterans who are a threat to win almost every time out as David Pearson comes into the pit area, who have lost one lap under green flag.
Not only is David Pearson in for a stop, but further up pit road, Ricky Rudd, who is running in the top 5, is also in for his first routine pit stop of the day. There is Rudd pulling out his photograph board. Work still going on the David Pearson car. Now he moves out. Kyle Petty comes in for a stop, and it's going to be very busy on pit road for the next few laps. There is Kyle Petty making a stop. Now Benny Parsons comes in, and so does Lake Speed.
Yeah, Bob, this has the possibility of really changing things a lot. There is Benny Parsons from inside the cockpit. You see what a pit stop looks like, taking care of the windshield on Benny's car. Benny's checking all the gauges over, probably having a conversation with his crew chief, getting ready to go back out. But so many things can change during lots of pit stops underneath green flags.
Now Bill Elliott.
The difference between 2 or 3 seconds can mean a half a straightaway on the racetrack.
Now Bill Elliott is in for a stop, and let's go down for the call of that stop.
Bill is in here already. They're changing right side tires, giving him full load of fuel. Elliott is one of the Ford drivers that has managed to get some better gas mileage out of his car. It used to be the Fords were the first in. Not anymore. The kids from Dawsonville have figured out how to run right with the General Motors products.
So Dale Earnhardt for a moment with the lead, but now he comes in, and Tim Richmond is momentarily in the lead. But as we look up toward turn number 4, we see that he is staying out there, so Tim Richmond has the lead right now. Let's go down to Jackaroo.
Dale Earnhardt has brought his car onto pit road. He was the leader just momentarily. They've changed the right side rubber. They dropped the jack. They filled it with fuel, and he's off and away in a burn of rubber and smoke, but he's back on the racetrack.
Labonte also in for a stop. So is Neil Bonnet. Labonte pulls out.
Well, the big question is, here comes Elliott around. There's Earnhardt trying to get back up onto the banks onto speed. Elliott has not reached him yet, so Earnhardt does execute apparently about a 1/10 of a second faster pit stop than Bill Elliott. He is about 10-12 car lengths behind. So Dale Earnhardt, I would say, has the lead, but we'll have to wait and see until everybody makes their pit stops. But it certainly is going to be Elliott or Earnhardt. Right now, the advantage goes to the yellow-blue car.
And Tim Richmond, who was shown as the leader for 1 or 2 laps, has come in. It's a quick stop for Tim. He's back out there. And right now, the lead is being held by Darrell Walter, who has not come in for his first stop of the day. There is Darrell, who is moving to the apron of the racetrack in turns 3 and 4. So Waltrip also comes in. Morgan Shepherd going back out on the track from his first stop ahead of Darrell Waltrip. We'll watch this Budmobile come in here for its first of the day. The Junior Johnson crew about to go to work on the car.
Of course, Darrell's had some bad luck recently. He's dropped out of a couple of races that he has been very competitive in. As a matter of fact, 3 that we've seen on ESPN in the last 2 weeks. So Waltrip, who has won so many of these races, really because of a combination of strategy and speed, is probably hoping that today his luck takes a turn for the better, because you need that strategy and speed, but you also need, as he has found out repeatedly in the last couple of weeks, a little bit of luck.
Jeff Bodine from Chemung, New York originally, now making his home in Pleasant Garden, North Carolina, moves into the pit area in that Levi Garrett Chevrolet. Work being done on that car, the windshield being wiped off as Harry Hyde and crew go to work on it. Fuel being put in, rubber changed on the right side, and they're still waiting for the fuel to go in. And there it is, and Jeff Bodine moves away.
Well, one of the advantages of being a little tall and also a little bald is you're among the first to know when it's raining harder. Right now, it's beginning to rain a little bit harder. Some of the crews up and down pit road are beginning to open up umbrellas. Still probably okay on the racetrack, but the weather is deteriorating right now.
Dick, you're right. We could see the wind picking up and the raindrops beginning to come down a couple of laps ago, and you can actually see the raindrops on Benny Parsons' windshield as he moves around the number 99 car of Connie Saylor. So we may have a rain problem here. The wind is picking up, and as we look toward the 3rd and 4th turns, we can see it raining beyond there. Let's hope it's not moving this way.
And Bob, we're a long ways away from halfway, so we are not in jeopardy of this race ending. A couple of cars almost coming together, apparently coming out of turn number 2. I know that Bobby Allison is one who was pitting on the backstretch. It was a red and white car, so I think no harm, no foul in that situation. Both cars seem to be moving down the backstretch. Now we're back in the Benny Parsons car, and you can see the foggy conditions that Bob Jenkins was alluding to a couple of seconds ago. Now, we're not really to the point where it begins to pose a threat just yet, because the rain is very light. But as we look off into the distance, particularly off turns 3 and 4, it does look like there's a little heavier rain clouds. Right there is the shot off of turns 3 and 4, looking, no, that's going down the front stretch. Rather going down the back stretch, looking in the 1 and 2. There's Richard Petty, who has come in for a pit stop, and his STP familiar, number 43. Remember, he's lapped down to the leaders, Earnhardt and Elliott.
Harry Gant has gone behind the wall, by the way. That car in for a tire change early because of a blister tire, but now Harry Gant is behind the wall as they continue to work on that car, and there is the hood up on the car and work being done.
Well, Harry, who has won a race here at Darlington, of course, he's won 6 times in his career, but he started in 12th position in this race today.
Bobby Hillen is out of the race early. What's the problem?
I think I broke a drive shaft when I started out of the pits.
So you're going to try and get back in the race?
I
think so. And we've got another problem. We're going to let Bobby go, but we're going to work our way over here to Harry Gant. If we can get our cameraman to follow us here. He continues to follow Bobby Hillen. Let's go get a hold of Harry Gant and find out what the problem is with Harry, because he's resting down here on pit road. Harry, what's the problem today?
I went to go around a car to come out of the pits. I got in the loose stuff and hit the wall, and it broke the ball joint.
A tough day for you then.
Yeah, we blistered tires earlier right on the start of the race, and we seemed to, try to fix that a little bit, and we thought we might be in better shape. It seemed to be.
Who do you think's in the best shape now for the win?
Probably Bill Elliott, I imagine.
All right, well, Harry drove such a strong race yesterday in the late model Sportsman Dixie Cup 200 as he took over for Jack Ingram and passed with less than 3 laps to go to win, but the Grand National race has not been as kind to him. The yellow comes out, and I would bet that that's because of moisture on the racetrack, as it is beginning to rain just a little bit. So we have 14 cars that are still on the lead lap as the yellow comes out. Now we present a track back brought to you by Levi Garrett Chewing Tobacco. Time after time, the quality comes through.
Rain is the biggest culprit in Winston Cup Grand National racing because it can stop a race dead in its tracks. You can't run in the rain. So NASCAR brings along their own radar system, very similar to what you would see in a commercial airliner, and they put it atop the start-finish line at each and every Winston Cup Grand National race. What they use it for, as we saw in Bristol, Tennessee, was keeping competitors and NASCAR officials alike apprised of where the precipitation may be and when it might show up right at the racetrack.
Well, the radar has showed some rain at the racetrack right now as we are under yellow because of rain. The leader is Dale Earnhardt, then Bill Elliott, Terry Labonte, Tim Richmond, and Lake Speed.
Just hear the stock cars rolling down that high bank track. Better keep your eye on number 5, cause he ain't looking back. That's Levi Garrett.
Yapoda.
Coming through.
And Harry Hyde.
Face that flavor coming through for you. Time after time, the quality comes through. That's why Levi Garrett is the brand I'm proud to choose. Levi Garrett.
Back in Darlington, South Carolina, inside the rainy windshield on the Benny Parsons car. And Benny, this is Bob up in the booth. We are under yellow. Was the track beginning to get a little slick because of the rain out there?
It was, Bob, up at 3 and 4 particularly. The car just got to the point it would not turn like it should. My crew chief, Leo Jackson, asked me, and I told him I thought it just was too big for us to race.
All right, Benny, you have been dropping back here. At least you have dropped back from your 4th starting position. Are there particular problems with the Copenhagen Chevrolet?
Not really, Bob. Our chassis was just a little bit loose to start with. I've tried to work out a different line, and it worked pretty good. The cars, I could run some pretty good laps, about as good as the leaders right now. My problem is I couldn't see them.
All right, well, we are under yellow, and we'll watch your progress when we go green again. Thank you.
Well, we also have an in-car radio into Cale Yarborough, and we're going to try and raise Cale right now. Cale, this is Larry Newbert, ESPN. Do you have a reading on us?
Sure do. Go ahead.
Well, Cale, things started out a little slow. Then you began to pick up speed. You began to move up to the top 20 cars. We're passing them, and then we're one of the early people to come in for a pit stop. What's going on underneath the 28 Hardee's car?
Well, we ran out of gas. Ran low on gas a little bit early, and I had a light on telling me that I was low on fuel, so rather than taking a chance, we just went on and got some fuel early in the race, but now we know we can run a little bit longer with the light on. So the car's working pretty good. I'm just trying to take my time and stay out of trouble.
Well, Cal, you got to be feeling that you're in probably a better position when you started the race because you've been able to stay on the lead lap with the leaders, and with your experience here, that may well play into your hand later in this day.
Well, I sure hope it does. This is a racetrack that you got to stay out of trouble on all day, and that's what I'm trying to do. And if we can stay here all day, I think this Hardee's Ford will do the job for us.
All right. And we're also with Tim Richmond. This Bob up in the booth. Tim, how's the weather out there on the track?
Bob, it's been raining. It's been raining about 10 laps, 15 laps prior to them throwing the caution. It was getting a little hairy out here trying to let's maneuver the track with the surface as wet as it was, but thank God they did a caution.
Tim, is the track to the point where it's too wet to race on? Should we red flag it here?
I don't believe so, Bob. It's not wet enough to red flag it. It'd probably be to our benefit to stay out here and keep the heat from the cars and the tires on the surface to keep it as dry as possible. If it gets any heavier or for very much longer, we probably will red flag it because the surface will be saturated too much.
Tim, you're running in 6th spot, and we're running well up there in the first 4 before we had that series of pit stops. The car working okay for you?
The car's working real well. The track's starting to come apart, it seems like, over turn 2. As you exit turn 2, the surface is getting real slick. I moved up about a half a lane, half a groove. Seemed to tighten the car up, but it was getting pretty hairy for a second until it was kind of like a dirt track. You had to go up and find another groove where you could get the traction. But we seem to have it worked out. The car's running real well. We're just sitting back here not punishing it and trying to use our head and watch out for everybody else and stay out of trouble to the end. Then we'll go race them then.
Well, Tim, that brings up an interesting question, staying out of trouble. Are you as surprised as we are that we've had no accidents and no yellows because of spins or anything to this point?
Bob, I'm very much surprised. You know, most lap cars out here seem to be acting pretty good when you come up to lap them, but the biggest surprise is, you know, we got through the first couple of laps, and then the other surprise is with the surface starting to get wet like it was, that nobody lost traction and crashed. I know a few people hit the wall. I saw Morgan Shepherd in the #1 car go up and hit the turn 3 and 4 wall, but that was the only thing I saw, which he didn't hurt anything, so I am kind of surprised. Let's hope the whole race goes the way it's went up till now, except without any rain.
All right, Tim, good luck to you. We'll keep an eye on you. Thanks a lot.
Okay, I want to say hi to everybody up in Ashland, Ohio, and Florida, and every place else. Tell them to cross their fingers if they would.
All right, will do. All right, let's go down to Jackaroo now.
Well, the lead car is Neil Bonnet, and the team manager is Tim Brewer. Neil, you're one of the only leaders that is not pitted yet. What's the strategy there?
Well, Jackie, you know, it seems like it's going to be a pretty lengthy caution. You know, it's just one of those deals to where the rest of the guys, they'll probably come back in and top off with fuel. You know, you can only change 2 tires under 1 caution period anyway. So, you know, basically we're just sitting here, you know, waiting for the rain to go away. Then we'll stop and get us a load of fuel, 2 tires, and go on about business.
Well, the question, though, is how long can you run under caution? How many more laps can you make before you run the tank dry?
Well, you know, we've only ran like 13, 14 laps since we made our green flag stop a while ago, so we're good for about 50, 60 more laps riding around here under caution. So, you know, we're pretty good for a while.
Well, that's the story from Tim Brewer, who's the crew chief on your lead car, Neil Bonnet.
And some sad news to report from the world of auto racing this morning.
Yeah, Bob, Neil Bonnet is running with a little bit of burden of sadness today because somebody who has been his teammate throughout the 1985 season is Butch Lindley. They have been doing some very serious experimentation with the V6 motor with success on the late model Sportsman Trail and the All-Pro and ASA ranks. Last night, Butch was involved in an accident of Bradenton, Florida, and the report that we have this morning is that he is in very grave condition. There are unconfirmed reports as to the actual status of his condition, but our hearts and prayers certainly go to all the Neil Bonnet and Butch Lindley people who've been involved with that program, and that's a very sad situation because Butch is a guy who really has shown a lot of potential in his career. He's won a lot of races on short tracks. He's been looked at from time to time as a potential for Grand National rides, but he was involved in a very serious accident last night in Florida.
It's raining at Darlington. There are 84 out of 367 laps completed at this point. Neil Bonnet is the leader, and being shown in second position now is Jeff Bodine. The raincoats and the plastic is out, trying to keep away the raindrops. We are in Darlington, South Carolina for the Transouth 500, which is being brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? And by Goodyear. Goodyear tires and Goodyear service for more good years in your car. Hopefully, we will be going to a green situation here in just a couple of laps as the skies have brightened considerably. Here are the top 30. Neil Bonnet and Jeff Bodine are running 1 and 2, then Dale Earnhardt, Bill Elliott, and Terry Labonte. 6 through 10, Tim Richmond, Ricky Rudd, Lake Speed, Benny Parsons, and Darrell Waltrip. 11th, Rusty Wallace. 12th, Cale Yarborough. 13th is Pearson. 14th is Buddy Baker. And 15th is Phil Parsons. 16 through 20, Bobby Allison, Kyle Petty, Ron Bouchard, Richard Petty, and Mike Alexander. In 21st, Joe Ruttman, then Trevor Boyes, Morgan Shepherd, Ken Schrader, and Slick Johnson. And 26 through 30, Jimmy Means, Connie Saylor, Ken Reagan, Buddy Arrington, and Don Hume. 94 laps out of 367 completed. We have not had a yellow because of an accident. However, this rain did bring out the caution flag, and there is the indication from the NASCAR official. In 2 more laps, we'll be going green. Now, several pit stops have been made here recently. Drivers anticipating the green, and so they've come in to get fresh rubber and more fuel. Joe Ruttman pulls out of the pit area. Buddy Baker was in for a stop just a few minutes ago, and Dave Marcus is also pulling out. So we're just about to go back to green.
And Neil Bonnet must have set some type of record. I think he went about 120 miles on that first load of fuel. Of course, the last 50 miles or so were under the caution flag. Just kidding, a little bit getting that good of gas mileage. But he did stay out there for quite some time. He has pitted, so the leader, or the man who led under this caution flag, has come into the pit area, and he is now back under the racetrack with his pit stop completed, but he's at the tail of the line and is not leading this race right now. By the way, Cale Yarborough has remained on the lead lap.
Well, while Larry and I have been nice and high and dry here in our booth, our pit reporters, of course, have been getting a little bit wet. Let's check in with them. First, let's go to Jack Arute.
Well, Larry and Bob, I think the key here is going to be what's going to happen with the weather. You have to make the choice vis-a-vis tires and fuel. Do you come in early when they throw out the caution? Do you come in late? Everything's still up for grabs, and I think it's just like Larry Newber said at the start, there's no clear favorite.
Well, Earnhardt seems to be counting on the weather staying cool and possibly even a little bit damp. They've really got the engine wound up on that car. The reason they dropped back just before the caution flag was to try to conserve it. They've really hung it out on the weather, hoping it's going to stay cool.
All right, well, Neil Bonnet has made a pit stop. That puts Jeff Bodine, the first car behind the pace car, and right behind Jeff is Dale Earnhardt.
Bob, I thought that 120 miles sounded a little long, even under yellow flag conditions, and I've just been handed a note that says he did pit on lap 67, so he did get out of the pits before everybody else, but Neil Bonnet has not been out all day long with just that one pit stop.
Bobby Hillen Jr., who pulled behind a wall with a problem, is back out on the racetrack. Now, the pace car moves to the inside, and by golly, the skies are almost bright enough to see a little bit of sunshine peeking through. We are about to go back racing as 96 laps will be complete when the cars cross the start-finish line. The 2 abreast formation comes out of turn number 4. The Transouth 500 is once again under green. They go 4 wide down the straightaway, but when they get into turn number 1, it's the 2 abreast at the very most, and they would like to run single file through there. Now let's see if Dale Earnhardt displays the muscle that he displayed earlier when he passed Bill Elliott. The car in front of Dale Earnhardt is Jeff Bodine, and they move side by side going into turn 4, and Earnhardt grabs the lead again. You got to be impressed with the strength that Dale Earnhardt is showing in this race. He has passed Bill Elliott with a lot of strength, and now he passes Jeff Bodine to move into the lead, and look at the distance that he's opening up.
Bobby really has opened up quickly, and now you begin to think about that halfway point. Remember, it's 184 laps, so we've got about 90 more laps to go, but the laps can go by quickly if we remain green here at Darlington.
There are communications not only on the radio, but with hand signals, and we understand we saw one from Ricky Rudd. Look at Ricky stick his left hand out of the window and say, "Go ahead, Benny."
Very interesting. A lot of interesting communication that goes on among these drivers while out on the racetrack after the last flurry of pit stops. And by the way, Tim Richmond, talking about pit stops, look at the front end of Tim Richmond's car. Oh, and Richmond was running so well and looked like he was definitely a threat for potential victory. but he's just about to go a lap down. There goes Earnhardt by on the high side, which you can't see here, but there goes the field by on the outside. And Tim Richmond not only has a damaged race car, but he is now a lap down.
Yeah, that's tough luck for Tim, who spoke very confidently with us when we were on the radio with him during that yellow. But he either ran into somebody or something and damaged that car and is a lap down. Dale Earnhardt sets the pace here out of turn number 4 with Bodine now back to third position as Bill Elliott has moved into second again. And here comes Terry Labonte to the low side of the racetrack, moving into turn number 1, and he now is in third place. And Lake Speed comes right along in fourth.
Bob, a couple of seconds ago, I started talking about the communication that goes on among these drivers. If you saw our broadcast last week at Bristol, after the last pit stops, Dale Earnhardt moved up to the outside alongside of Ricky Rudd. And I wondered if there was some communication going on between the two of them. And sure enough, I asked him about it. And what happened was Dale was pulling up alongside of Ricky and giving him the strength gesture and letting him know he was there. And then after the race, they also got next to each other and said hi to each other. And Ricky congratulated Dale on the race well run.
Now let's go to Dick Bergman in the pit area.
I'm with Raymond Beadle. He's car runner for Tim Richmond. What caused the damage on the right front, Raymond?
Well, when they had the restart down there, Phil Carson was one of the lap cars, and he just got up into him. I guess he lost it down there in turn 1 and 2. Just got up into 10.
Can you tell if the handling is all right?
Barry just asked him, and he said the handling was okay, so we'll be all right.
He's a busy car runner, by the way. You were in Eldora last night, were you not, in Ohio?
Yeah, I went last night to Eldora. It was raining here, and I was going to watch the sportsman, so I flew up there and watched Sammy Condell, my sprint car, run last night.
And how did he do? How did he do?
He come in second in the qualifying race, and they run the main event today.
Well, one car did well. Let's see how the other one does here at Darlington.
Good battle going on. Look at Tim Richmond. That car is certainly not handling poorly. He just goes to the inside of Jeff Bodine, passes him. Tim would like to get his lap back that he lost because of that incident on the restart.
I tell you, though, Richmond's going up against the Green Bay Packers. He's a long ways away from Earnhardt and Elliott, who are absolutely decimating his field. I got to tell you, you know, in the beginning of the show, we said it didn't look like there was any clear-cut favorite in today's race. Well, Elliott has made us eat a little crow on that, and because of the performance that Earnhardt has turned in, although we did say that Earnhardt has been hot lately, he, too, is making us not look too bright about that prediction. There was no clear-cut favorite.
Lake Speed put a stripe on the left side of his car.
Oh, he got it again.
Yeah, he's either having handling problems or letting it all hang out. I guess he's just letting it all hang out because he moves into fourth spot. Lake Speed goes around Jeff Bodine and moves into fourth. Boy, some anxious moments for him, though. He scraped the wall up there in 3 and then nearly lost it coming off 4. It appeared to be that way.
He didn't slow down a beat either. He bounced off the wall coming on the front stretch, went underneath Bodine and just went on about his business. He didn't let that face him in the slightest.
Lake Speed, there's a good shot of him. The young driver from Jackson, Mississippi. He's 37 years old, driving for the Raymont team this year in the Nationwide Auto Parts car.
You know, Bob, all week long we heard the drivers tell us that really one of the meaningful keys to success here at this racetrack is survival. As a matter of fact, Bill Elliott, as we're continuing to watch Lake Speed's progress, Bill Elliott is one of the people who answered that question with one word. What's the secret to success here? He said survival. And I got a feeling that that may well be what we're seeing from Bill Elliott, because he's been parked right on the back deck lid of Dale Earnhardt now since we've gone green for like the last 15 laps. And Elliott may simply just be testing Earnhardt in some respects. Maybe there's something that's just not perfect with the car, but he's not really trying to race with Bill right now because we're not to the point where really we're getting down to halfway where it might be flag to race. And now we're getting a report that the car may be pushing just a bit. So Elliott is able to go fast, but I don't think he quite has the confidence to race right now with Dale.
He's content right now to lie back in second position. Both of the leaders move high to pass the Clark Dwyer car, number 64. There is the leader, Dale Earnhardt, Kannapolis, North Carolina. And behind him is Bill Elliott, and they have about a full straightaway distance. Actually, it's about 3/4 of a straightaway back to third, and that, of course, is Terry Labonte. Now, Tim Richmond, who lost a lap, is running 12th, but is a lap down still, however, is doing very well out there. And there is a shot from Benny Parsons' car as Neil Bonnet is right behind Benny. that Darrell Waltrip is right behind Benny. And
there you see the Neil Bonnet car. From the top, they both look exactly the same. It's not until you see those white fenders that you know it's the traditional number 11 of Darrell Waltrip. Let's watch Waltrip now. Let's see. Looks like in Benny moves to the inside. I guess that would probably be Phil. I can't see the color of the car. Got sun coming in on our monitor here, but it goes to the inside of his younger brother Phil, who has lost the lap in this race. Waltrip also, and there goes Phil and Waltrip. Apparently Benny getting high there in the corner, and a whole host of guys going underneath. Is he slowing? Yes, he is, Bob. He is up along the wall. Benny Parsons is in trouble.
Benny slows that car dramatically. Look at the front end of the car shake. He's
got the wall,
counter,
Bob.
yeah, with the wall on the right side of the car. And the report is that a tire exploded on Benny at the start-finish line. So Benny Parsons will be bringing that car in for a stop. And we'll see if the damage is so severe that he has to drop out of the race.
Boy, that was very dramatic. We happened to be at the right place at the wrong time for Benny Parsons right there. And Benny did an excellent job of keeping that car under control because a tire exploding at the 165 mile per hour plus speeds on a straightaway here at Darlington going into one of these tight corners, that is a very, very expensive order, but Benny did a very good job holding the car under control.
We are yellow because of the incident. There is debris here on the main straightaway. It looks like that it's a shredded tire, but there could also be some other types of debris on the racetrack. So a yellow is out, and Benny Parsons comes in for a stop.
Boy, what dramatic shots those were, Bob. I'll tell you, that was unbelievable just to see him in traffic. He just went underneath his younger brother, Phil, and all of a sudden the freight train went by on the inside, and he held that car so steady, we did not even sense the explosion of the tire or the fact that the car was in trouble. There was no lurch of the car. He obviously remained in complete control at all times, and he did an excellent job maintaining his head on that situation.
Boy, that thing must have really exploded because right above the tire, the bodywork is raised up so as to indicate quite an explosion. And there is the tire that let go. Unfortunate situation for Benny Parsons. We'll try to raise him on the radio here. Benny, this is Bob up in the booth. Some anxious moments, I would think, for you.
Say that again. I don't know what happened. I guess a right front tire exploded.
All right, is there damage with the body or any other portion of the car, or was it just mainly confined to the tire area?
Oh, the right front fender's torn, the hood's torn all up. I don't know. I really don't know what happened. We don't know how bad the damage is right yet.
You haven't been able to assess as to whether it's going to slow you down at this point.
Oh.
All right. Well, let's go down to Jack Arute, who can further examine this tire that exploded on the Benny Parsons car.
Bob, if you had a tire explode at 165 miles an hour, you'd definitely be in the wall in a highway car. But Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company has developed a safety inner liner for race tires on super speedways. You can see how bad the outside tire is tore up. But inside, the integrity is still there. There's plenty of air pressure, and that's probably why we did not see Benny Parsons pace the wall in turn one.
And a lucky thing for him, there is the damage there above the wheel area that resulted from the exploded tire, and Benny comes in for his second stop. Back with more live coverage of the Transouth 500 from Darlington in a moment. Just as you join us, the green flag comes out once again on the Transouth 500. We've been yellow because of the incident involving Benny Parsons, a tire exploding on him and debris scattered on the racetrack. But now we're green once again, and Lake Speed has the lead as they speed down the backstretch. That's David Pearson right behind him, and Tim Richmond third in line, but he has lost a lap in this race. And Terry Labonte has moved to the apron of the racetrack and is coming in.
Terry Labonte is last year's national champion, who really has a habit of finishing his races. That's one of the real keys to success of this team, is that they are able to race all day long. But suddenly, after this green flag is unfurled, after our second significant caution flag, Labonte is coming to a stop in the pits. Now, the field is rocket shipping down the backstretch. Labonte has not lost a lap yet. You can see the crews really working hard, trying to keep on the same lap. And Jack Arute is down there right now.
Left side tires for the Piedmont Airlines car. Dale Inman is the crew chief. Dale, another problem. He just waves it off. Another problem with tires after a caution. Back to the tower.
Is he going going to go a lap down? Yes, he is. Dale Earnhardt, who is now in the lead, and Lake Speed both pass him in turn number 2, and Terry Labonte is also a lap down to this field now. Labonte is the leader in the Winston Cup points battle because of his finish at Bristol. Jeff Bodine is second in the point standings, and we'd like to remind you that we will continue to cover the Winston Cup battle in points next weekend as we bring you live coverage of the Arlington 400 from North Wilkesboro, North Carolina.
Well, there's no question now that Dale Earnhardt has shown us that he is the superior car here today so far. Tim Richmond has his nose up front again. Got a quick glimpse of the red gold numeral number 27. Remember, he lost a lap when he too encountered the cement here at Darlington. He's running well, but the car is performing quite well also, despite the fact that he got to the fence. He is still down a lap. He'd really like to get ahead of Dale Earnhardt, but Dale is just whooping everybody today, and he's not letting anybody get by. You know, Bob, there's an interesting story there in the top 10. It's only about, a straightaway or half a straightaway behind the leader. You know, Cale Yarborough, he's not made much noise today, but he's still there. He's still in the same lap. They've had some troubles. They've been able to stay on the lead lap, and don't count him out yet. Also, Darrell Waltrip's still in there, I notice.
Yeah, there are lots of contenders still up there in front, but have not been a major factor at this point. There is Dale Earnhardt, who is in the lead, and Bill Elliott is running in second position. And we had an opportunity to talk with Dale Earnhardt.
If you were writing your biography, how would you describe Dale Earnhardt?
I don't know, really. I just, I'm a dedicated racer. I grew up racing, and my dad raced. That's all I ever knew. I just love to race. I don't really think about the money or what goes along with it or PR work or the what. I just love to race. Go out there and race that race car and win races.
And he is a former Rookie of the Year and a former Grand National Champion, and is in the point standings third right now in 1985. Well, Benny Parsons has pulled behind the wall. Now, they did remove, as you can see, the front bumper on that car, the front area above the tire. However, apparently things just aren't working for him, and he's pulled behind the wall. Larry?
Benny, this is Larry Newber. You got a reading on us?
Larry.
Well, what's going on, Benny? What do you think the problem is, and can you guys solve it?
Well, the toe out, when the tire blew it bent something in there, and it's towed out about an inch. It makes it very hard to try to drive going in the corners.
Now, because you guys don't race for points, I guess you have a lot of decisions to make right now, whether or not to stay in and fix it or to get out, don't you?
That's right. You know, if we didn't have the camera, it wouldn't be any choice. We'd just quit. But we'd like to get some more fine pictures for you guys today if we can get it fixed.
Thanks, Benny. Hang in there. We know you got to go do some radio, so see you a little later.
Well, Benny was providing some excellent pictures for us. He was running in 7th position, but all of a sudden, as we rode with him, the tire blew, and he went high on the racetrack, and everybody got below him and past him, and now Benny Parsons is behind the wall. Look at Tim Richmond, though. When he had his problem and got some damage there on the right front corner of the car, it has not slowed him down a bit, as he is right up there behind the leader, Dale Earnhardt. Now, here's another competitor behind the wall, and we all know who that is, Richard Petty.
Yeah, I think we've seen that car a couple of other times. You know, for Tim Richmond, who's running second in line right now, put this in perspective. He is showing everything that he has. Now he's going to try to move to the inside of Dale Earnhardt, because Richmond figures you can't go that long here at Darlington without a caution flag. So he wants to get ahead of Dale Earnhardt. If he can lead Dale Earnhardt across the stripe under a caution flag, you know, they race around to the caution when it flutters in a Grand National stock car race, Richmond can get back onto the lead lap. So Richmond, for every lap, he's got to consider it as a white flag. He's racing very hard to try and lead Earnhardt across the line here in the front stretch.
Well, with 124 laps completed in this race, it has been, by and large, a Dale Earnhardt and Bill Elliott race to this point, and they're running 1-2 right now. Earnhardt with the lead. Tim Richmond is the second car in the line there, but he is a lap down. We have 9 cars on the lead lap, and they are, besides Earnhardt and Bill Elliott. Also on the lead lap is Ricky Rudd, Lake Speed, also Jeff Bodine. In 6th position is Cale Yarborough. 7th is Darrell Waltrip. In 8th position is Rusty Wallace. And 9th, the final car on the lead lap, is Neil Bonnet.
You know, I'm more than been slightly impressed with the job that Richmond is doing, because he really hasn't shown us to be quite this fast any time up till now in the race, but he is definitely as fast as anybody on the racetrack. Richmond has got to be driving his heart out. He keeps looking for that little crack that Dale Earnhardt wants to keep closed to keep Richmond back there, but Richmond is really turning the pressure on Dale. Now he's looking to the inside again. No, lap car in the way. I don't think he had quite enough momentum anyway, but Richmond is just waiting for Dale Earnhardt to slip just a couple of feet. Of course, you need at least that on this racetrack because the lanes are so narrow here in Richmond, fighting to get back on the lead lap.
Car being lapped on the backstretch is Don Hume, car number 49, the Harper Clean Hands Formula Chevrolet, and now Tim Richmond goes inside of Dale Earnhardt and gets the lap back. Ooh. Now Tim would like to see some more debris on the racetrack and a yellow so that he can make up the lap and get back in a competitive situation. Now let's go to Dick Bergeron now, who's with the king, Richard Petty.
Richard, another disappointing Darlington. What happened?
Yeah, it just wasn't a good day. The car wasn't working real good to begin with. We come in and made some adjustments, got the car working pretty good, and then the engine quit on it. I think the bottom end went away on the engine.
How is the racetrack, Richard, particularly with respect to the new paving?
Kind of wet time to time, but other than that, the track's in good shape. But pretty rough down there where they patched, and where you come off the patch, the track's real slick. But everybody getting around fairly good right now.
That's Richard Petty with a disappointing finish to his day.
The STP Pontiac is in the garage area. Now we present an STP pit stop brought to you by the STP Corporation. On the world's racetracks and on the world's roads, depend on STP, your car care company. We are back at the Transouth 500 in Darlington, South Carolina, and a look now at the point standings in the Winston Cup Grand National Division. Terry Labonte on top with 738 points, then Jeff Bodine. Third is Earnhardt, fourth is Neil Bonnet, fifth is Bill Elliott, and sixth is Darrell Waltrip. Speed moving back out of the pit area after a quick stop. Blake, of course, running in the top 5 most of the afternoon. His second routine pit stop of the afternoon completed, and he's back out there on the racetrack.
Bob, I think they had a tire problem. They took gas and made no report in the pits, but Blake was running very fast. We saw him make some big moves earlier in the day, but began to slow dramatically just before this pit stop. But it was very uncommon, of course, for him to come in here at about lap 138 when everybody else is out running fairly comfortably under green flag conditions. And by the way, just to update you, Tim Richmond has been able to stay in front of Dale Earnhardt. There he is. He's still waiting for that caution flag, and will it come? Richmond is working as hard as anybody in the racetrack right now, simply because Dale Earnhardt is not making it easy on him. Bob, there was one thing I wanted to say just before that STP pit stop. It's kind of an interesting fact and figure here. You know, Richard Petty has won on every racetrack in NASCAR, and repeatedly on a lot of racetracks. No, he has not won here since 1967. 18 years since Richard Petty won at Darlington.
And he is out of the race this afternoon. There is Tim Richmond leading Dale Earnhardt and Bill Elliott, but remember, Richmond is almost a lap down to the field. We're at historic Darlington International Raceway, where they started running in 1950. The first Southern 500 was won by Johnny Mantz. They've been running 2 races here at Darlington since 1957. This race used to be a 300, and Kyle Petty has spun in turn number 3, and will bring out our third caution of the afternoon. And now Tim Richmond, if he crosses the line ahead of Dale Earnhardt, will get the lap back. Here they come, and Tim Richmond is indeed going to, well, we don't have a yellow. We do not have a yellow, as Kyle Petty was able to keep the car rolling. And so no yellow. So a disappointment, I'm sure, for Tim Richmond.
And that's the truth. Right now, Richmond has his hands full with Lake Speed going on the backstretch. There is Kyle Petty trying to work his way back around to the pit area. Kyle looping around in turn number 2, undoubtedly will come in this time around. He's had a pretty good year. You know, he's had 3 top 10 finishes in the 1985 season. He's finished 11th at Atlanta, so let's call it 4 top 11 finishes. And he approaches the 1985 season with a great deal of confidence. He genuinely feels, as do some other people down in the pit area, that he may well be a threat to win one of these races in the very near future.
We were talking about Darlington and how they've been running 2 races here since 1957. These used to be a 300-mile race. Used to call it the Rebel 300, and the first Rebel 300 back in 1957 was won by Fireball Roberts.
I mentioned yesterday, Bob, and I can't help but repeat it again. That must have been some thrill as we look at track record, which is almost 158 miles an hour, set 2 years ago back in this race in 1983, that it must have been some thrill back in 1950 when so many people had never seen anything like this before to see that first race.
Tim Richmond's qualifying record did hold up here this weekend. Bill Elliott put his car on the pole with a 157.4, and as you saw, Tim Richmond's qualifying record is 157.8. Nice move there as number 98 Trevor Boyce went high on the racetrack, and both Richmond and Dale Earnhardt went to the low side of the racetrack. Dale Earnhardt is still leading in his lap 144, and he has now led 64 laps. Bill Elliott, who is running in second position, has led 52 laps.
Well, there is 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. That's Buddy Baker. That's a lap car that's there leading that group through turns 1 and 2. Running in 6th position is Neil Bonnet with teammate Darrell Waltrip running in 7th position. They are still on the lead lap, but that guy right there, Buddy Baker, has lost lap. You know, a lot of you may think that number 88 came, well, let's say out of left field for Buddy Baker, but there's some real family tradition behind that number of 88. That's a number that Buddy raced with successfully quite a number of years ago, and it goes way back to the beginning of his driving career.
So the nose-to-tail formation down the front straightaway. Now let's find out what happened to Kyle Petty over there in turn number 3 as we go down to Jackaroo.
Eddie Wood is one of the new generation Wood brothers. Eddie, what was the problem with Kyle Petty?
He just called in on radio and said that number 8 car hit him, spun him, and we had 2 flats and had changed all 4 tires.
But everything else is okay? Yeah. That's the story from the Wood Brothers pit.
Kyle Petty remaining out there on the racetrack. We continue to watch this dice up front between lap Tim Richmond, or almost lap Tim Richmond, and Dale Earnhardt. Now Earnhardt has lengthened his advantage over second place Bill Elliott in the last few laps. Look at Earnhardt go to the inside, or at least look to the inside to try to pass Tim Richmond, and Tim doing a fine job of pulling him off.
Bob, I can't help but comment about the concentration that's required of Tim Richmond. I got to tell you, right now, this kind of lulls us to sleep. This may not look all that exciting to us or those of us watching at home. But I got to tell you, Tim Richmond is working very, very hard right now. Not only do you have to steer and guide the car around a very tricky racetrack, but you also got to almost drive half this race in the rearview mirror. You can't spend too much time in the rearview mirror because then you get out of shape. It happens very quickly at this racetrack, and Richmond is doing a tremendous job because I can't tell you how hard he's got to be working every split second of the time out there right now.
David Pearson, one of those drivers this afternoon who has had a rather poor day to this point. David was on the front row outside of Bill Elliott, and we anticipated a good run by David this afternoon. Of course, he has more victories at this racetrack, 10, than in any other person, but it has not gone his way this afternoon.
Well, only 5 guys who started this race have won both the spring and the fall races. He is one of them. David Pearson has won both the Transouth and the Southern 500s, and the others are Bobby Allison, Richard Petty, Harry Gant, and Buddy Baker.
And he is currently shown in 16th position, David Pearson in the Chattanooga Chew Chevrolet. Now, a couple of cars who were in the pit area and that went behind the wall for a while were in that shot
Bob.
there.
He got him, Bob.
He sure did. So Earnhardt moves ahead of Tim Richmond, and Tim now does definitely go a lap down. A couple of cars there in the shot that were behind the wall, namely Harry Gant and Bobby Hillin, but as you saw, they're both back out in competition. There is Tim Richmond, car number 27, now shown a lap down, but boy, has he had his hands full the last few minutes. And Jackaroo talked to Tim Richmond.
Tim, is there a particular place on this racetrack where you can gain the advantage on a driver?
Yeah, there normally is. The biggest advantage is in the helmet. You know, what's inside the helmet usually gains the advantage here for a driver. Darrell Waltrip's very good at it. You have to look ahead. You have to think at this racetrack while you're racing. Not just about how the race car is working and a few other people, but about 100 different things you've got to be aware of here and be constantly thinking about. And if you can do that, then you're going to be at an advantage later on at the end of the race, because you'll probably be here and not in the garage of the crashed car.
And fortunately, we have seen no crashed cars here today. We've had a couple of minor scrapes with the wall, but nothing like we have seen the last 2 times we've been to this point, and 152 laps are in.
You know, Bob, another thing that may have contributed to this is that the crews have absolutely predicted the atmospheric conditions. They all set up for a day exactly like this. It has unfolded exactly as they had anticipated, so it's been very good for the engines. It's been relatively cool. It's been overcast. You can run the engines pretty hard, and I think that has contributed to how smooth this race has gone. And the weather and atmosphere has been just as expected.
And fortunately, no rain in the last few laps. Now, Earnhardt a little bit high coming out of turn number 2, letting the car slide just a little bit, but Tim unable to get that lap back. So, with overcast skies and cool temperatures but no rain, we'll resume our coverage in Darlington after this. Blake Speed has come in for another pit stop, so he has fallen back more positions. He was running in the top 5 earlier, but now Lake Speed in for a second stop in the last 20 or so laps. Back out there once again, however. Well, let's remind you about our weekly auto racing program on ESPN every Thursday at 7:30. It's called Speed Week. You'll get the latest news from the world of auto racing and the latest results from all phases of motorsports. Join Larry and me for Speed Week every Thursday evening at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time here on ESPN.
Bob, this weekend was a particularly good one if you're a racing fan. Boy, they were racing all over the country, so we'll not only have reports, of course, from the weekend's activities here at Darlington, but the Indy cars are running out there today. There was a Super B race. IMSA cars running this weekend. There was some sprint car races, so if you're a fan, boy, you don't want to miss next week, I'll tell you that.
Average speed is 123.413 miles an hour, even with the rain delay that we had. And Dale Earnhardt continues to lead this race. It is now lap 158, and Earnhardt has led since lap number 116. Buddy Baker started this race in 10th position in the number 88 Liquid Wrench Bullfrog Nitz Oldsmobile. That is one of those drivers that have fallen a lap down on the field. Car number 88. There he is, the second car in line right behind Lake Speed.
He's another guy who traditionally, this has been his kind of racetrack. He's been very good in the super speedways, although this place has been hard on Buddy's career. He has not won at Darlington since 1971. You can see that he's had a couple of good finishes already in the 1985 season. He apparently is going to run the entire season fielding his own team, and he's bitten off quite a big piece, I got to tell you, to field your own team, to be the chief mechanic and the team leader and everything like that. That is really a tall assignment, but Buddy likes to race, and as I mentioned to you, this is his kind of racetrack, but today he has slipped a lap down to the leaders.
He has 2 fourth-place finishes this year, was 4th at Bristol, and was 4th in the Daytona 500. The number 88 streaking down the backstretch, and there's a lot of history, of course, associated with the Baker name and with the number. Here's Larry Newber.
When Buddy Baker organized his own team at the beginning of this year, the number 88 appeared. Now, to many, maybe that number came out of left field, but in reality, that number is very close to the home plate of the Baker family.
Through the years, you know, we've had 87, 88, and 89 since I was a little boy, and we've had, you know, as much as 3 cars running at one time, and as a matter of fact, 88 was one of the first numbers I ever drove, and you know, after I formed my own team, and to get that number back, it really meant a lot to me.
Buddy, when you think back, what's the very first recollection you have of that red and white number 87 Oldsmobile?
Well, that's my dad's number, and it was acquired from a racing legend way back. Buddy Schumann had the number to begin with, and my dad liked the race car and bought it. Now, he won 27 races in a row with it. It was like it was a magic number almost for my father. As soon as he started driving the number 87, he started having great success on the racetrack, and I don't know whether there's anything to it, but I know people through the years have had numbers that really meant a lot to them, and the block of numbers that we have mean a lot to us because it is family numbers such as the 42, 43, and 44 of the Petty family. It's more or less, you know, a trademark of the Bakers to be in 88 or 89 or 87, and just like Richard, you wouldn't recognize him in another numbered car, and through the years I've drove many different numbers, but it's still been one of my favorites, and to keep it a long time, I hope.
Buddy Baker is currently in 12th position, a lap down to the field. There are 9 cars on the lead lap.
Bob, I think that number 87 car that we saw, and Buddy getting very high and really smoking the tires there as he goes up into the first corner, getting a little bit out of the groove.
He did it a lap ago also, so perhaps some handling problems with that car.
And Cale has slowed. Cale Yarborough has slowed down.
He was up to 4th position, but now Cale Yarborough dives to the inside of the racetrack and is bringing that Hardee's Ford in for a stop. Cale Yarborough started 21st, had moved his way up to 4th position, and I was just noticing him on the racetrack running so strongly. Let's find out what kind of a problem this is. If it's routine, no, it's more than routine. Cale is behind the wall.
Boy, it has been a tough season for Cale Yarborough, and Jack Arute is down there in the pit area right now.
Well, we're here in the Cale Yarborough pit with Waddell Wilson. Any indication, Waddell, as to what happened?
I don't know. He didn't say anything. He just went in the garage with it.
Well, we're going to break away and make our way to that garage area and get a report from Cale Yarborough.
All right, Jackie, thank you. We'd appreciate that because it was a sudden ending for Cale Yarborough. Now, with him out of 4th position, that moves Darrell Waltrip into 4th spot, and his teammate Neil Bonnet to 5th. Running in 3rd position is Ricky Rudd. 2nd, of course, is Bill Elliott, and the leader is still Dale Earnhardt.
Bob, I wanted to make a comment about that red-white number 87 car that we saw in the Buddy Baker piece, because I really believe it's one of the most fascinating cars in the history of the sport as we're continuing to watch the leader Dale Earnhardt in the blue and yellow Wrangler jeans number 3. That number 87 car is a 1950 Oldsmobile, and I got to tell you, it raced for over a decade and won races between 1950 and 1960. It also raced in the very first Southern 500 on this racetrack here.
Never count Darrell Waltrip out of the race. Let's go down to Dick Berggren.
You bet never count Darrell out. Jeff, have you guys just been holding back? Is there more?
Well, not really holding back. We're just trying to be just a little bit on the conservative side because it's just a long race, and it's a very dangerous race as far as traffic. Right now, the way Earnhardt's running, we're going to pick the pace up a little bit every lap. He's done it. I told him he's getting too close to comfort, so he's picked it up a little bit. We can get lucky here when we get a caution flag or whatever. We're going to be all right up there. It's a long race. Dale's running awful hard right now for a 500-mile race.
And last year, when these guys entered victory lane, they had about the only car. Jack, to you.
A very disappointing Cale Yarborough. What was it this time?
Well, we lost another engine, Jackie. I don't know. Something just broke in it.
It's got to be tough now to keep your spirits up.
Well, yeah, but, you know, I still got a lot of faith in Waddell and the entire team, and I just feel like, sooner or later we'll get it, and when we do get it, we'll be tough.
You've never won a Transouth 500. That's a real monkey on your back.
I haven't given up on it yet, though.
Cale Yarborough out of the Transouth 500 today because of engine problems.
Bobby may not have won this race, as Jack pointed out, but he has won the Southern 500 more times than any other driver. 5 times Cale has won the races in the fall that has become known as the legend of the Southern 500.
And here is another monkey, if you will pardon the expression, that can't be shaken from Dale Earnhardt's back. Tim Richmond is still right there behind Dale Earnhardt and still a lap down, but I'll tell you, he is staying right up there with the leader.
Well, about 20 laps ago, Bob, he lost a lot of distance on the racetrack to Dale because he got hung up in slower traffic. He didn't kind of bowl his way through the slower traffic. He had to make a pretty wise decision, as a matter of fact. It was either that or perhaps go to crashing. So it let Earnhardt get a little bit of breathing advantage away from Tim Richmond, but now Tim has caught back up again, and he's hoping that Dale slips just a little bit so he can slip underneath.
The top 5 drivers in this race now with 171 laps completed. The first 5, there is Dale Earnhardt running in first position. In second spot is Bill Elliott. Then in third position, Ricky Rudd. 4th and 5th are the 2 Junior Johnson cars. 4th place, Darrell Waltrip, and 5th is Neil Bonnet, with Jeff Bodine also running in 6th position, giving Neil Bonnet a good race at this point.
Now, the other thing that Earnhardt has done, and look at Tim Richmond. Was that him making that big move down on the inside? It sure was. Richmond is way down on the inside of Dale Earnhardt. And as we're looking at Neil Bonnet and Rusty Wallace, who, by the way, has been doing a very good job today, there you see on the screen, Dale Earnhardt once again never saying die to Tim Richmond. Richmond got past him, but Dale's coming back again, Bob.
Yeah, they're still going at it, and although Tim had the advantage for just a while,
look at this.
Earnhardt gets it back, and now they move side by side, and Richmond moves back on the lead lap. Unbelievable racing here. It's too bad it's not for the lead.
Well, you know, it's really interesting what Dale Earnhardt is doing right now, because he obviously senses that the Richmond car is very fast, and should he get on the lead lap, as we look at Buddy Baker, who's coming in for another what appears to be on scheduled pit stop, Earnhardt really respects what is underneath the hood of Tim Richmond, because he is not going to let Richmond get by easily.
Jeff Bodine, by the way, has moved into fifth position around Neil Bonnet, so Bodine is fifth, then Waltrip, Rudd, Elliott, and Dale Earnhardt. And the rain, we understand, is beginning to fall once again on the racetrack. Another shower passes over the speedway, and 175 laps are completed. And the lap count is very important at this time, because remember, when they run a lap over the halfway point, it is an official race and can be stopped.
Absolutely, Bob. It's 184 laps, I believe, is the official halfway point, so we are within 10 laps of that moment. And I'm a little surprised, in a way, that Dale Earnhardt is going to battle like this with Tim Richmond, because there's no way that Tim obviously is going to get all the way around this racetrack and beat Dale should we get a pause for rain. But Dale just doesn't want to let Tim have that opportunity.
So Dale Earnhardt stays in the lead. And we are nearing the halfway point as rain begins to fall. We'll be back with more live coverage after these messages from the Transouth 500. Back in Darlington, and there is Dale Earnhardt just moving out of the pit area. He has completed his routine pit stop and is working back up to speed, getting back up into the groove. Several of the other top 5 contenders are making pit stops. Ricky Rudd was in, and there is Jeff Bodine, who had just moved into 5th position a few laps ago.
I don't know, Bob. He may have an overheating problem. There's an awful lot of smoke pumping from underneath the hood of that Dragon as he stops to get outside rubber. They put the car back into the ground. They're not in any kind of big hurry to get out. Now they leave him go out, but there was, I think, a little more than normal smoke pumping from underneath the hood of the Levi Garrett number 5.
Well, we have 7 cars that are out of the race at this point, so the attrition has not been all that great here this afternoon, and still no car into the wall, which kind of surprises everybody. There is Tim Richmond in the number 27 old Milwaukee Pontiac in for a pit stop. He's a lap down on the field, but has been running very well in this Transouth 500. Unfortunately, some encounter with either a car or the wall on the right front of that car that caused him to make an early pit stop, and that's the reason why Tim is a lap down. Now here is Darrell Waltrip in for a stop. Darrell also in the top 5 and had gone into the lead just before he came in for the stop.
Darrell Waltrip's been driving a very interesting race today. I told you a couple times that one of the real keys to winning this race is finishing, and Waltrip, I think, has given us an excellent display of just how you go about doing that here at Darlington today. He's been very consistent. He's been fast. He's not lost a lap to the leaders, and even though he is significantly behind in terms of distance on the racetrack to Bill Elliott and Dale Earnhardt, he's still very much in it for the win here.
12.7-second pit stop for Darrell Waltrip. And these 2 cars have come out on the racetrack side by side again, as Earnhardt and Richmond have been out there battling all race long, it seems like, at least for the last 100 laps or so. And Richmond lets that car drift a little high in turn 3.
Yeah, he sure did, Bob. They had almost identical pit stops, by the way. Dale came in first, and then Tim came in about a lap later, and they both worked their way out into the first turn at about the same time, so we're right back where we were before the pit stops.
Well, we won't be back next week. Now, the rain date on this race was next weekend, and North Wilkesboro would have been moved to the middle of May. However, we have reached the halfway point, so if it rains now, the race is an official one. We will be at North Wilkesboro, North Carolina next weekend for another Winston Cup Grand National race at the North Wilkesboro Speedway, the Northwestern Bank 400.
You know, there's an interesting phenomenon about the pit stops, Bob, and the rest of this race. we are right on the edge. Some of these cars can't go, I don't think, with one more pit stop. Some might be able to, but by my unofficial calculation, we are right on the edge of that particular line as to whether or not they can go the distance on two more or one more pit stop. So if we continue to go green, particularly the last 100 laps of this race, this could be a very interesting finish. We may be running the sands of time through the hourglass in terms of fuel consumption. It'll be very intriguing down there at the end.
Neil Bonnet pulls out after a quick pit stop by the Junior Johnson crew. 16.7 seconds pit stop for Neil Bonnet. So Earnhardt remains in the lead, and Elliott is still second, and in third position is Waltrip. Fourth is Ricky Rudd, and fifth is Jeff Bodine. All of this after the most recent series of pit stops. Moving on to pit road right now is Harry Gant, who has not had a very successful afternoon in that Skoal Bandit Chevrolet. We'll be back with more of the Transouth 500 from Darlington, South Carolina. The leader is Dale Earnhardt. And we have had our first incident of the day as far as a car into the wall. It is David Pearson in car number 21, and the second time in 2 days that David has tasted the wall. However, just before this incident over in turn number 3, Buddy Baker exploded a tire in turn number 1 and got up very high on the racetrack, bumped it, and then drove to the inside of the racetrack.
It's difficult to tell, Bob, whether or not it was him coming into contact with Morgan Shepherd or if he lost the tire. There's Morgan going by, and he seems to be not affected at all, so I would guess that Buddy just lost the tire all by himself. It was not as a result of contact with Morgan Shepherd. Now you see 3 people spinning at the other end of the racetrack. The yellow car is Bobby Waywack. The white car, can't see from this distance, could be Mike Alexander, but that's just a guess. But David Pearson is sitting down on the bottom with a whole lot of damage. It's been a tough weekend for him, you know that, Bob?
Yeah, it sure has been. And the most important thing for Tim Richmond about all this is he made up his lap, because he did race back to the flag with Dale Earnhardt, and Richmond crossed ahead of Earnhardt. So Tim Richmond is back on the lead lap, and now it's going to be very interesting to see how that car performs since he is back on the lead lap.
The white car, by the way, we just got confirmation from our spotters, is that of Trevor Boys, the number 98 car. It's kind of an interesting team, the number 98 car. This car is owned by Mike Curb, although Dr. Ron Benfield, who's been involved with the number 98 for the past few seasons in Grand National, has basically gone into partnership with Curb. This is the same car that we saw Tom Sneva run at Atlanta earlier this year. The number 98, also the number that Mike Curb's cars will be running in the Kart IndyCar Series.
Well, there you can see that David Pearson is out of the car and in good shape, so no injury in that accident down there in turn number 3. Well, Sports Center will bring us up to date on all the latest information from the world of sports, and we'll be back here in Darlington after that. Racing 85 today in Darlington, South Carolina for the Transouth 500, being brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? And by Dickies. They're America's favorite work clothes, but who says you have to work in them? We are still under yellow because of an accident over in turn 3 involving David Pearson. Here are the top 10 with 195 of 367 laps completed. Dale Earnhardt is the leader, Bill Elliott second, Darrell Waltrip third, Ricky Rudd fourth, and Tim Richmond now shown in fifth spot. Sixth, Neil Bonnet. Seventh is Rusty Wallace. Eighth is Jeff Bodine. Ninth, Terry Labonte. And in 10th position is Bobby Allison. Now, they have been doing some major work to that Terry Labonte car, but he has not lost a lap. And there is Buddy Baker, who has dropped out of the race because of a scrape with the wall over in turn number 1. I heard a pop, and I think he probably blew a tire and got into the wall over there, and he has dropped out of the race. The pace car still out there, and the car is still under yellow.
Yeah, that'd be my guess, too, Bob. You saw the big Oldsmobile logo sticking right out there. Buddy was one of only 3 Oldsmobiles in this race today.
And here is Jack Arute with Buddy Baker.
Buddy, what happened out there? Well, I blew the right front tire, Jackie, just as I went in number 1 corner and hit just about head on. The thing that I'm really aggravated with, I sat over in the corner over there knocked unconscious for a few minutes. They ain't sent an ambulance. They ain't done nothing. I'll tell you the honest truth. They just don't look after nobody. You can just tear yourself all to pieces.
But you're okay. You're all right, though.
Oh, I'm all right. But, you know, I could have not been all right. And then what would have happened if the car had caught on fire while I was out just for a second or two?
Well, you can see it's obvious that Buddy Baker's a little chagrined today, but it'll be another day. And let's go to Dick Berggren.
Terry Labonte was in the pits just a few moments ago with the front end jacked up. They put 3 crew members underneath it, and what they did basically was pry out a bunch of chunks of rubber. Apparently, rubber is accumulating on the speedway because in an earlier pit stop, Bill Elliott came in, amazingly, with his left front brake caliper on fire. Again, accumulated rubber. Bob?
All right, Dick, well past the halfway point now, and we are still under the caution flag. We can tell you a few more of the positions out there. In 11th spot, 2 laps down, is Phil Parsons. 12th place is Ron Bouchard, also 2 laps down. 3 laps down. In 13th position is Lake Speed. Then in 14th spot is Morgan Shepherd, and 15th is Joe Ruttman.
Bob, to be a little journalistically fair here, to report on that situation Buddy Baker was talking about, we remind you that Neil Bonnet had the same complaint about a week ago from crashing into the wall at Bristol, but yesterday in the late model sportsman race, there were numerous crashes, and our observations were that they were very, very quick in responding during the sportsman race yesterday. So I think we're seeing 2 sides of the same fence here.
We can also give you a few cars that are out of the race. Jeff Hooker is out, so is J.D. McDuffie. Richard Petty was an early casualty. Benny Parsons exploded a right front tire and dropped out of the race. Connie Saylor is out, so is Elton Dotson. Cale Yarborough out because of an engine problem. Also out of the race, of course, David Pearson because of the accident a few laps ago. Also involved in that incident was Trevor Boyes. He's out. Bobby Waywack also involved, and of course, Buddy Baker in car number 88. So those cars out of the race, but still a lot of race cars out there on the racetrack as we are about to go back to a green.
And we're about to get started in this race 3 abreast there over in the 3rd corner. Everybody's trying to jockey for position. Now they fall back into their 2 abreast, 2 rows, or rather about 10, 12 rows of 2 abreast start. I think we're going to go green, hopefully without incident.
There are a couple of cars, make that 4 cars ahead of the leader here in the line, but the leader is Dale Earnhardt in car number 3. Almost a lap down is Neil Bonnet and Phil Parsons and Rusty Wallace. There is Earnhardt, the 5th car in line. He moves to the inside and passes Bobby Allison. And they come off of corner number 4 for the completion of lap 198.
Well, the big question now is going to be Tim Richmond. Can Richmond show the same type of speed that he did when he was trying to get his lap back? There are 2, 4, 6, there are 7 cars between him and Earnhardt right now, and among those 7 cars are some people running 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
And 2nd and 3rd, these 2, Darrell Waltrip, number 11, and Bill Elliott, number 9. 2nd and 3rd position here. Elliott, an early leader of this race. They move side by side. Now, both cars move to the inside of the racetrack to pass Bobby Allison going into corner number 1. 2 abreast into corner number 1. Allison, the high car, and Waltrip is able to lap him, and so is Bill Elliott.
You can see just a wisp of smoke as Darrell Waltrip punishes the tires just a little bit, getting underneath Bobby Allison, who's now 2 laps down.
David Pearson had a tough day yesterday. He took over driving chores in his son's late model sportsman car and hit the wall up in corner number 4, hit the inside wall rather hard, and he's gone into the wall again here today in the Grand National race.
David, when an engine blows in front of you, there's no place to go at Darlington, is there?
Well, they're not. You know, there's such a close, tight, and a real tight racetrack anyway that when something happens like that in front of you, of course, I seen it, but wasn't a thing to do. You know, time I seen it, I was in the oil, and of course, you just can't turn it when you know it.
2 race cars in 2 days, that's got to weigh on you.
It has. It's getting rough on my body, too. You know, I hurt my shoulder a little bit, and but it just knocked the breath out of me. But, you know, everything's all right. But that's what I hate. I hate it for a horse and a guy. You know, you just can't believe how it makes you feel to drive a race car like that.
Okay, you're a KG veteran. Who's got the advantage out there right now? Is it Earnhardt? Is it Elliott? Who's your pick?
Well, Earnhardt is running good, no doubt about it. But it looked like Elliott's handling a little bit better. He can stay a little bit lower in 1 and 2 than he can. And, of course, I was having a little trouble with my chassis to start with. We kept
making adjustments, and after that last pit stop, I was running just as fast as Elliott was. So I felt like I was going to be in pretty good shape, but I'd already got behind.
The Silver Fox, the word from the garage area, he'll be back, but not at Darlington today.
6 cars now in the lead lap as Rusty Wallace has gone a lap down to the field. There is the third-place car of Bill Elliott, and there is a listing of the drivers who have dropped out of competition. McDuffie and Slick Johnson, along with Buddy Baker, David Pearson, and Cale Yarborough. Elton Dotson out of the race, so is Connie Saylor, Benny Parsons, Richard Petty, and Jeff Hooker.
A couple of interesting names there. Jeff Hooker, of course, out of the ARCA ranks. He's a guy who runs normally ARCA cars up in the Midwest. He's from Ohio, and he's making a little venture down here in the South to run some Grand National racing. Eldon Dotson is another name that Grand National fans may not be familiar with. He's a very successful dirt tracker from down in Texas who came here with the Will Cronkite team for racing activity this weekend at Darlington.
The leader continues to be Dale Earnhardt. Darrell Waltrip is in second spot. There he is, and Bill Elliott is in third place. Running right ahead of them is Rusty Wallace, and Neil Bonnet is trying to stay on the lead lap. He is in 6th position right now, but is right ahead of the leader, and Dale Earnhardt is looking to put Neil a lap down.
Well, another interesting thing as we watch the leader Earnhardt working on Neil Bonnet. Tim Richmond has not made that big drive that I kind of expected. He's there in that group going by the camera right now, so he runs in 5th position, but Earnhardt right now continues to be the guy that everybody is just watching the tail end there. Boy, there's somebody getting a little bit out of shape. Is that Benny?
No, Benny dropped out quite a while ago. That's younger brother Phil.
Well, they all look alike to me.
5 cars now on the lead lap as Earnhardt was able to pass Bonnet. So the 5 cars on the lead lap: Earnhardt, Bill Elliott, Darrell Waltrip, and Ricky Rudd and Tim Richmond. Back with more live coverage of the Transouth 500 from Darlington International Raceway right after these messages. The question as you rejoin us is Dale Earnhardt in trouble? He has dropped to the inside of the racetrack the last 2 laps, and yes, it looks like that there is a problem in that car. Earnhardt, the leader, slowing in turn 4. It looks like he could be headed for the pits. We'll watch the situation. No, he stays out there, but the car is off the pace definitely.
Well, I don't understand why he did not come in, because he is significantly slower than what he was before. See no smoke, Bob. The engine obviously continues to work well. I would guess a tire going soft on him. Equalizing is a term that sometimes we use. We still see no smoke. The engine continues to work, but now the radio is telling us it may be an engine problem. He may have dropped a valve. Dale Earnhardt's quest for victory may be over, so now we look to Bill Elliott, who's been the other dominant car, and Tim Richmond. Remember how fast he was about 30 or 40 green flag laps ago, and Dale looks like he's going to try and ride this one out. But if he's going to ride it out at this speed, the chances for victory are kaput.
The leader of the race is Darrell Waltrip, believe it or not, who has come on from his 13th starting position to lead the race. Here's Dick Berggren.
Dale Earnhardt's definitely got problems. He has lost a cylinder, now down to 7. That's not the fast way around Darlington.
Definitely not very fast now as he is running that low groove. He led 128 laps before the problem occurred. Now the leader becomes Darrell Waltrip. There he is, the 3rd car in that line. His teammate Neil Bonnet and Phil Parsons ahead of him. But the leader, Darrell Waltrip, 2nd place now is Bill Elliott. Ricky Rudd 3rd. 4th place is Tim Richmond. And in 5th spot, Earnhardt, although he is losing positions as we speak.
Well, as we watch Darrell, who now leads this race, remind you that Dale has finished in the top 10 the last 4 races in a row, and with the advantage he has built up as we look at Stevie Waltrip, taking notes for a husband in lap times, Dale can still finish in the top 10 possibly, because he's 2 laps ahead of so many other people in the field. There's Stevie keeping an eye on the progress of husband Darrell.
One of those busy wives on race day who charts the course and the action of her husband. And there is the man behind the wheel and the leader of the race, Darrell Waltrip.
Now, Bob, he dropped out of that late model sportsman race yesterday, and he's had a little bit of bad luck here recently. There was that devastating weekend for the Johnson team last week at Bristol. Remember, both of those cars crashed hard, but Darrell probably could go for a good finish. I'll tell you, they need something to bolster that team a little bit.
Let's go to Junior Johnson in the pit area where Jack Arute is located right now.
Junior, it seemed to be a second-half operation here. You weren't in the hunt in the early going, and now you're leading this thing.
Well, to start with there's some of them run a little harder than we thought they ought to, and we had a little bit of adjusting to do on our car, so now it's pretty close, but still worried about that Ford sitting there behind us because he's awful strong.
Do you think, or has Darrell reported whether he's got enough to hold off the advances of a guy like Elliott?
Well, he says his car's handling real good, and it's running exceptional well, I think, and we just have to wait and see. I think we've got a lot of problems trying to beat that Ford because it's strong off the corners. It looks like it's getting through the corners real good.
The other question, of course, is his teammate Neil Bonnet is directly in front of him. Very shortly, they're going to have to lap each other. What's your advice?
Well, number 12's on 7 cylinders and has been ever since about 90 laps into the race. So I think to be running on 7 cylinders and he's awful strong, I just hope he finishes.
Jackie, that situation has already occurred as Waltrip has put a lap on Neil Bonnet, and now Waltrip stretches out the lead just a little bit on Bill Elliott.
You know, Junior was talking about how that they were kind of riding it out there in the early stages of the race. You don't assume that on a track like Darlington that you're going to go all race long with no caution flags. There are a lot of things that can contribute to the setup of these cars. Primarily, of course, the chassis, but you can make adjustments, move the weight around in the car. There are actually jacks inside the car that allow you to transfer the weight. You get different sets of tires. There's a phenomenon called tire stagger. They all come out of the same mold, but they are just slight. And Tim Richmond way down in the apron. Got out of that one, though. We were talking about tire stagger. You measure those very carefully. You put different size tires in the cars during different pit stops. You move that weight around. So the car can really change its complexion dramatically as the race wears on, and that was the type of thing that Junior was talking about.
We were watching just a moment ago there the number 44 of Terry Labonte running an 8 spot. Now we focus in on Rusty Wallace, the Rookie of the Year in the Grand National Division last year, and he is running in 7th position, a lap down, but a good run in the Al-Ugard Pontiac for Rusty Wallace from St. Louis, Missouri.
Bobby's really had a couple of good runs in a row. Remember, he performed so well at Bristol last week. This is a team that I think it surprised a lot of people when they decided to go with Rusty Wallace last year. They were expecting maybe a little more success than what they had last year, but they have made the dedication to the cause. And I'll tell you, during practice this week, there were times when Rusty was almost as fast as anybody on the racetrack. As a matter of fact, the times that he was turning the day after full qualifying, had he been able to put them all together and turn them during qualifying, he would have started 3rd on the grid today. Yes, today. As it was, when they unloaded that car off the trailer, they were almost as fast as anybody, and they were pretty unhappy that they were unable to keep that car together and actually qualify with the original engine and original setup that they had. But he's been running very consistently, and Rusty may well be a force to be reckoned with before the season is over.
You got to believe that he's one of the rising future stars of the Grand National Division. Was so successful on the short tracks back in the Midwest. Rusty Wallace, as we indicated, last year's Rookie of the Year, and one of the drivers who is attempting to become Rookie of the Year in 1985 is Ken Schrader, the driver of the number 90 Ultra Seal Ford, and there he is. There were only a couple of other drivers in the battle for Rookie of the Year honors this year. One of them is Don Hume, the other Eddie Burschwell, but leading in the points for Rookie of the Year this year, this man, Ken Schrader from Benton, Missouri.
Probably an engine failure at Rockingham, but you know he has finished the other 4 races. There you see Schrader leading Texan Eddie Burschwell. By the way, that car is crew chief by Donnie Allison, and Don Hume is 3rd in the rookie point standings. But Schrader has finished in the top 16 in the other 4 races. He had 11th at Daytona, a 14th at Richmond, a 16th at Atlanta, and a 10th last week at Bristol after running as high as 4th or 5th. So only the one time when they had the engine failure at Rockingham as he finished really in the bottom half of the field. So he's out there getting some valuable experience.
Ken Schrader, 29 years of age, and got a lot of his experience in the open wheel cars back in the Midwest. So we will take this break and be back with more from the Transouth 500 after these messages. Back at Darlington, South Carolina, where Clark Dwyer has a problem with his car. Dwyer, the driver from Colorado Springs, Colorado, and the Sonny King Ford Honda Ford on the apron of the racetrack, but up in the groove, the two leaders, Darrell Waltrip in number 11 and Bill Elliott in car number 9. And if Darrell Waltrip can hold off for the victory here this afternoon, he will move into a tie with Cale Yarborough and Bobby Allison on the all-time Darlington winners list. The runaway leader, of course, we told you earlier, is David Pearson. Well, there's a lot of discussion in the world of sports, and always has been, as to whether race drivers are athletes, and that was our question of the week.
Are race drivers athletes?
Yeah, I think that race car drivers are athletes, because my definition of an athlete is a person who puts himself through pain and torture to beat someone else. And folks, this is pain and torture.
Yes, I definitely think they are. Anybody that can set one of these cars for 500 miles, I think is a definite candidate to be an athlete.
Why?
Well, all the fatigue you got to go through. You know, it takes me usually 2 days to get over a good hard race. You know, Bristol, for example, that's one tough racetrack. Any shorter racetrack that you don't have any time to rest down the straightaway, you know, it's got to be tough. You take a regular guy off the straight and he probably couldn't last 10 laps.
There's always a dispute that they're not. I don't really know why people say they're not. You've got to be in very good physical shape to wrestle a 3,700-pound race car all day. Not only the weight of the car, how well it is or isn't driving, just sitting in it for 3.5 hours, and the heat we put up with the intense heat inside the car, you've got to be in damn good shape just to do that. I don't think just anyone can do it. It's physical, it's mental, and like I say, the intense heat in the car, and it's I think we're damn good at it.
Yeah, definitely. You know, this is a tough sport. And, you know, you got to set in a car that gets up to 120 or 30 degrees inside and concentrate with no timeouts for 3 or 4 hours at a time. And, you know, it takes a lot of physical strength, too, and it takes a lot of mental strength. And, you know, I think race car drivers as a whole are not looked upon as athletes. But, you know, I think in a lot of situations, if you'll take a driver and throw him into a basketball court, he can play basketball. But you take a basketball player and throw him in a race car, he might not be able to drive. So, you know, I think really a race car driver is more of an all-around athlete than a lot of other athletes are.
There are no other athletes. Race drivers are the only real athletes.
So there.
Well, yeah, I have a feeling about, or an opinion about that, Bob. I've always told people that I believe, and one of the reasons why I'm very proud of the sport of auto racing, is that really anybody can be an auto racing driver. You don't have to be 7 foot tall, run the 100-yard dash in 10 seconds, weigh 250 pounds. Anybody can be it, but not just anybody. I think there's something special about an automobile racing athlete. Of course, I'm a little prejudiced, I guess.
The yellow is out, as you can clearly see, and the reason is because there's a whole lot of oil in pit lane. However, everybody else is coming in for a pit stop. Let's go down to our pit reporters first, Jackaroo.
Junior Johnson is working in the rear, the left rear area, to adjust the handling on the Budweiser car of Darrell Waltrip. That means they'll be a little better off when they go out of the pits. Hopefully they've cured the minor problem because the car's running really well. Let's go down to Dick Berggren to find out what they did down at his end of the pits.
Well, what they basically did down here in Bill Elliott's car was put 2 tires on it, put a tank of gas on, pat it on the trunk, and send it off, Jack. Apparently, they're quite satisfied with the way this automobile is handling.
Interesting situation with the yellow flag here and the opportunity for all the leaders to commit for a stop. And now we're going to see, I think, some very interesting competition out there on the racetrack. Dale Earnhardt moves away. He was one of the drivers that had a rather slow pit stop, but he's back out there, and everybody else came in also during this period.
Bob, I was trying to see exactly what Junior Johnson was doing to the Waltrip car, and my attention was swayed another direction. I just caught the end of it, but I'm not sure. I think he might have loosened that car up a little bit. I think Darrell may want to slide through the corners just a little more. We'll see how it goes when he gets back under green flag conditions, but he couldn't shake Bill Elliott. Bill Elliott was right there, and as Dick reported, that apparently Bill Elliott was very happy with the performance of that car, but have to wait and see. Maybe Jack or Dick can tell us a little later as to what exactly Junior did, but he may have loosened up a little bit. Hopefully Darrell can slip through a little more ease.
Jeff Bodine is in for a stop. Joe Ruttman, who is still out there in competition, is in for a stop. The reason we are yellow is because of some oil on the racetrack and oil also in pit lane. They're working with the oil dry compound over in turn number 3. So while we are yellow, we will take this time out to bring you an ESPN and NASCAR track fact.
Two of the switches on the dash actually help keep the rear end together. Now, those two switches are actually a fan and a pump, and they are connected to this device, which the crews call the squirrel cage. Now, what happens is that the grease that is stored in the rear end, about a gallon of it, is actually pumped into this device. And there's a little fan in there that is spun around by the motor. It's like having an animal in there, and it keeps the grease cool. Now, the idea is to keep it down to about 250 degrees. It's the same kind of grease, by the way, that is used in a truck on the roads. Well, this little device here protects thousands of dollars worth of equipment. They can all be yours for about $250.
And this track fact has been brought to you by Loctite. Come on, race fans, Duro it right with Duro Extend Rust Treatment. It destroys rust. We will return with more from the Transouth 500 at Darlington, South Carolina after these messages with 235 laps completed. Darrell Waltrip is leading the Transouth 500 with about 130 laps to go. We're at 237. The race is 367. There's Waltrip now in first position. And Ricky Rudd is now second with Bill Elliott in third. Tim Richmond fourth, and Dale Earnhardt, despite the fact that he's off the pace and running on less than 8 cylinders, is still in fifth spot.
Well, Waltrip has positioned himself well at the front at each of these restarts because he has been able to get out from the pack significantly earlier than Bill Elliott, and that's the reason why he's been able to open up a little advantage over Elliott. Elliott, through the situation of the pit stops plus where he started in line, he's actually running in third spot right now, and there's Ricky Rudd, who performed so well last week at Bristol.
Second position after a race-long battle last week with Dale Earnhardt, in which he finished in second spot. But that Motorcraft Ford is performing well again, although Bill Elliott makes a move on the inside now at the end of the backstretch to take over second spot, but could not do it. Bud Moore is standing by with our Dick Berggren down in the pit area.
It looks as if your car is running exceptionally well. How do you play the strategy from here?
Well, the car's running real well, and right now we're checking on tire size and staggered, so we'll be a shootout at the end. So we're running, trying to stay right up there with them right now, and then when it shoot out for the win, we'll know which tires to put on and what to do towards the end.
Of Waltrip and Elliott, who are you most worried about?
Well, Waltrip and Elliott both going to be pretty tough, so we're going to have to run both of them.
Bud Moore, he's crew chief and car runner for Ricky Rudd.
And Ricky Rudd is now in third spot as Bill Elliott moved inside in turn 3 and blasted around Ricky. So Elliott moves to second, Rudd back to third spot.
You know, Terry Labonte is having another interesting race. It's almost a carbon copy as we watch later Darrell Waltrip heading back to second place Bill. There he is, second place Bill Elliott. Terry Labonte, rather, is on the far right-hand side of your screen there, that light blue and white car. Same thing happened to him last week at Bristol. He got a lap behind in the early stages of the race. He went after the rest of the race and ran almost as fast as the leaders all day long and finished well up in the top 5. And there goes Terry, and he's doing it again.
So Ricky Rudd now back into third position. We had an opportunity to talk to Ricky and ask him about concentration here at this racetrack.
Do you find that when you're running in a 500-mile race that maybe your mind wanders for a moment here and there?
Well, it might tend to at some racetracks, but at Darlington, when you come into it, you just really have to realize that, you know, you're not allowed any screw-ups here, that if you make one, that the day's over for you. So, really, that's on your mind pretty heavily. So you're really that much extra hard on yourself, telling yourself not to make any mistakes. And you realize what the penalty can be. So I've seen a lot of cars here. I've seen Darrell Waltrip come here, lap the field once or twice. And it just took that one fraction of a second. He took his mind off what he was doing, and he was in the fence and it ended his day. So the penalty you pay for not being alert is pretty severe.
3 top 10 finishes already this year. 2nd at Bristol, 4th at Atlanta, 5th at Daytona, and he is 8th in the current point standings. The average speed after 240 laps, 124.365 miles an hour, as Waltrip and Bill Elliott are up front with 5 cars on the lead lap. By the way, if Waltrip can hold off for the victory this afternoon, it not only will move him ahead on the win list, but it'll also mean that Junior Johnson will be among the leading car owners at Darlington. He and Glenn Wood have 8 wins each, and it would give Junior Johnson another win here at Darlington.
Well, Darrell Waltrip has won 64 times in his career. His last win was October of last year. He has yet to win in the 1985 season. He has won, of course, here at Darlington in the past. He has won 4 times at this racetrack, and you know, he's one of the all-time leading winners in terms of dollars in NASCAR Grand National Stock Car Racing. At the age of 38, he's already won over $1 million 5 times. That's to say, not in 1 year, of course, but his career earnings, $5,169,000.
Well, let's tell you where some of the other competitors are running as we watch the top 2 here. Rudd, of course, in 3rd. Richmond is 4th. In 5th position is Dale Earnhardt. 6th, Terry Labonte. 7th is Neil Bonnet. 8th is Rusty Wallace. And 9th is Jeff Bodine. In 10th position, 2 laps down, Bill Parsons. 11th is Ron Bouchard. 12th is Bobby Allison. 13th, 3 laps down, Lake Speed. And 14th, car number 4, Joe Ruttman. He is also 3 laps down. So far, we have had 17 lead changes among 8 drivers, 4 caution flags for 36 laps. Here's Jack Arute.
Larry and Bob, Bud Moore talked about Steiger and assessing the situation that he has for tires in hopes of having the best left for last. All of the teams behind their main pit area stack their tires when they come off the race car. Now, the key is they may find a good set of tires early in the race. They've got several laps on them. They've been heated up. They get much better when they cool down again. And a lot of times the teams will pick the best set with the stagger, the differential between the inside and the outside diameter, in hopes of putting them back out on the race car for the last, 20 or 30 laps. So when you hear a driver talk about good tires or bad tires, or a crew chief talking about taking a look at his stack of tires, it's generally a guy that's back here in this area checking these rubber right out.
Well, one thing I think the drivers are going to have to concern themselves with again in the next few minutes is the weather situation, because as we again look beyond turns 3 and 4, the skies are darkening very, very badly. And we have a spin and a crash in turn number 2, and it's Ricky Rudd.
Oh, I think he got that wall fairly hard, too, Bob. There's significant damage to the front of the car. I saw the left-hand side also had some damage, and Ricky Rudd, who was running so well for the 2nd week in a row, has lost control, and Darlington has jumped up finally and bit one of our leaders with absolutely no warning.
Rudd's car at the bottom of the racetrack, just out of turn number 2 at the beginning of the backstretch.
You know, Bob, it doesn't appear to be that significant of a crash, but Ricky, and there we catch the end of it, you see, has already made contact with the front of the car, and there he is sliding down the racetrack. Everybody going to the inside, Lake Speed going by. Neil Bonnet was one of the first ones to get by. And, ooh, Joe Ruttman, that one kind of close. I've not seen any movement from inside that car yet. Now I see the head bobbing and his hand waving out the window net, so I guess Ricky is okay. You can see he hit that wall almost head on, Bob.
Yeah, he sure did. He made hard contact with the wall. The front end of the car is mangled, and he has a lot of work to do on that car to get it back in running condition. Now, while the yellow is out, all the leaders will come in for another stop. Here is the leader, Darrell Waltrip.
Well, we've had enough yellow flags here in the last 50, 60 laps or so to kind of scramble the strategy as far as pitting goes. We're still not to the point where you can go all the way on one more pit stop. It will be pretty close. Maybe you can. We're at lap 250 and 360 goes, so about 110 laps remain in this race. I guess just about everybody could make it on one more pit stop if you had had to. Yeah, I think we're inside that window, so this might equalize all things up as far as pit stops go. One more pit stop will be required for everybody to get new fuel and to maybe pick that last perfect set of tires that Jack Arute was talking about. You know, that stagger situation, Bob, that has always interested me. One thing for everybody at home to keep in mind is that all these tires, they're the same size. They come out of the same mold, but because rubber has some expansion and contraction qualities, by the time that you actually get them to the racetrack and get them mounted, they actually come out to be a little different size. So it's become a little bit of a science. Every tire has to be measured individually by a crewman, and then some decisions have to be made.
Well, Ricky Rudd is still in that car, but you can see the paramedics are on the scene with one of the rescue squads over there, and I don't think Ricky is not getting out of the car because he's injured. He probably will just ride in it on the hook back to the pit area.
Yeah.
So we think Ricky is going to be okay. We've seen movement from the inside of the car. And so while we're yellow, we'll take this break and be right back with more of the Transouth 500.
As well as Bill Elliott is running, according to his brother Ernie, he's still not running as well as he'd like to. They've only adjusted the chassis twice today. Once to alter it from where they started, once to bring it back to where they started. But Ernie says the two-tire rule is absolutely giving them fits. They can only change outside tires or inside tires. Jack talked earlier about getting the exact right combination between right side and left side. That's what they don't seem to be able to do. Ernie thinks that if they can get that thing right, if they can get the stagger right, maybe on the last set of tires, they can go faster than they're going now. As good as they're running, they're still not happy.
Well, he's still in second position behind Darrell Waltrip, but we'll watch that situation as you've explained it to us. There is Buddy Arrington in car number 67, right behind the yellow car of Jeff Bodine. The red with blue trim on it is Buddy Arrington. And no, it isn't a Chrysler, it's a Ford. And there's Buddy Arrington's headshot as he moves down the straightaway in that car that he has purchased from the Elliots.
Well, they made the Buddy Arrington crew made the decision because they just weren't happy with the results they were getting from the Chrysler. They've been trying so hard to make that thing work. He's won over $1 million in his career, but they finally have kind of thrown in the towel on the old Chrysler, the last one that was left in this league.
So it is a very interesting story about how this combination came about. With a further examination, here is Larry.
Dearly beloved, we have gathered here in memoriam for a fallen warrior, apparently who has passed from our ranks forever. The example of perseverance and loyalty is certainly something to behold. Never a chairman of the board, but nonetheless an example that certainly can be held up to all. Buddy Arrington apparently has laid to rest the Chrysler. What happened? Did the 5-year, 50,000-mile warranty kind of expire?
I guess, Larry, you'd call it 50,000 or 20 years. That's how long I've been running them, and I don't know. It come a time where we need to change, I guess. Everybody needs to change on something, and NASCAR says that this body is, you know, no longer qualified to run next year, and I didn't want to wait till wintertime to get involved in a change, you know. So I figure, well, I better start it now, and when winter comes, we can spend time working on engines and dynos and things that we need to do instead of getting prepared for a change during the winter. So we decided, we started last year at Riverside. I talked to the Elliott boys about buying a car from them, and it took from Riverside till 3 weeks ago to close the deal, and we finally got it all worked out and got it where I could jump in and buy the car. You know, it takes a lot of dollars to buy a car like that, and so I'm saying a car, and what happened, we ended up getting 2 cars. I don't know.
Buddy, does it feel different? I mean, the Ford from the Chrysler product?
Oh yeah, we got here and we have worked our butts off for 2 days, and we still ain't got it comfortable for me. So, but we're getting it, we're gaining on it, and we will whip it. We'll get it where the way I want it. And to start with, I ain't never had power steering. The power steering is nice. I know it's, if I ever make myself get used to it, I'll like it, but right now we had to take it off. I just couldn't drive the car with the power steering on it, and the minute we took it off, we picked up a full second right off the bat to the next lap I run without it. So it's just a deal where you've been used to something 20 years, you just can't wipe it out of your mind in 5 minutes or 5 laps. It takes you time to work up to it. So we're going to quit here, go with no power steering, and when we get to Martinsville or Wilkesboro, we're going to put the power steering back on the car, and I'm going to make myself learn how to drive it all over again.
Well, the ads say, have you driven a Ford lately? Pretty soon, Buddy Arrington will be able to say, yep.
Buddy started this race in 36th position and is still in with the Arrington Racing Ford. Well, here are the top 10 with 255 out of 367 laps completed in the Transouth 500. There are 4 cars on the lead lap at this point. We'll be back with more coverage in just a moment. Promotional consideration and fees paid by Copenhagen, the world's largest selling moist smokeless tobacco. Copenhagen since 1822. The tradition continues. The pace car pulls off the track and the field begins to accelerate as Darrell Waltrip will lead them around for a restart of the Transouth 500. 258 laps completed. We are back to green once again. 4 cars on the lead lap. Waltrip, Elliott, Richmond, and Dale Earnhardt. A lap down in 5th spot is Terry Labonte, and a lot of traffic over in corner number 2 as the leaders get through nicely.
Well, there are heavy traffic in the back. What's happened between about 5th and 6th position was that Neil Bonnet, operating only on 7 cylinders, was going into that corner a little slower than everybody else was, but everybody did get through without any problems. And now here comes Bill Elliott. While we were away, the storm clouds began to gather again off of turn number 3 and turn number 4. We have about 100 laps or more to go in this race, but there's a very good possibility we will not go to distance. So Bill Elliott and Darrell Waltrip, as Darrell Waltrip's teammate, Neil Bonnet, comes into the pits, may be going for broke as of right this minute, because this race could end at any moment. Here comes Bill Elliott as we continue to watch crews going to work on Neil Bonnet's car. This could be a race to the finish almost every lap.
Neil slowed significantly when they dropped the green flag and came in for a change of rubber on the right side. We'll take a look again at the restart when the green flag came out. Look at the traffic here in corner number 2.
You can see the number 12 car slowing down. Lake Speed caught in the middle of the racetrack. Morgan Shepherd down low gives him room. Jeff Bodine caught right in the middle. Harry Gant drops way down into the apron. It's real slippery down there. He finds a groove, slips through. Right in the middle of the racetrack was also Lake Speed, and everybody got through without any problems.
Here they are, Waltrip and Elliott, and we're yellow. We don't know why at this point. We'll try to find out. Maybe it is rain.
Well, nobody is scurrying for the umbrellas in the infield, Bob. I don't believe it would be rain under these conditions, but as of this moment, I don't have any other excuse either.
Well, neither do we. We were concerned a little while ago about the condition of Ricky Rudd, who had a hard impact with the wall over in corner number 2, but apparently he's okay. Here's Jack Arute.
Ricky, you really kissed the concrete out there. First, your physical condition. You all right?
Yeah, I feel pretty good. I'm a whole lot better shape than that car is in right now by looking at it.
What happened?
Well, I thought I cut a tire. I'm looking over to the car. I can't really see anything. Car broke loose real sudden getting in the first corner. I don't know if I got into some oil or what happened. First time I'd done that all day long, and when it broke loose, I turned back to the right and tried to gather it up. I had a slow slide going. I thought I had it gathered back up. Then it overcorrected to the right into the wall, hit on.
Ricky, you've had a chance to run most of this race out there. Has the track changed a lot since the beginning?
No, not really. I think the racetrack is exactly the same as it was the first 5 or 6 laps of the race. Racetrack's in real good shape.
Well, Bob and Larry, Ricky's here. He's in the garage area. And to answer your question about the weather, it's not raining down here, so the caution must be for something else.
Yeah, it's for debris on the backstretch, but boy, don't you love race strategy. Dale Earnhardt failed to come in for a pit stop while all of the other drivers ahead of him did. So now Earnhardt is in the lead with less than 8 cylinders. However, what's on his mind is the fact that there could be some rain in the next few minutes. And if there is, by golly, Dale Earnhardt will be the winner of this race. Tim Richmond is still out there on the lead lap in 4th, and we'll try to talk to him, Larry.
Tim Richmond, this is Larry Newber up at ESPN. You got a reading on us?
Roger, go ahead. I didn't hear you.
Well, Tim, earlier in the race, when you were racing with Dale Earnhardt, it looked like you were about the fastest car on the racetrack. Once you got that lap back, you've never come back to the front. How about the setup?
I'm not sure. We've had ever since we got the lap back, I'm not sure if the track has changed or what the situation is. But we've just not had the car handling ever since then. So I don't know. We're hoping to get the combination back again so we can go back up and run with Darrell and the Bill Elliott car and see if we can beat somebody. The car was working great. We just kind of lost it. We're trying to get it back right now.
Tim, about a half a lap from green, but does the crew say that weather looks threatening? Are you guys going for broke at this point?
I didn't quite understand you. We're fixing to take the green this time by. We're going to check this for just a second. We're going to be busy here in just a minute. Thanks anyway. See you later.
Thanks, Tim. Hang in there.
You kind of got the idea there that Tim wanted to get back to the business at hand.
Just a bit, I would say.
All right, and they are ready for a restart now. Remember, Dale Earnhardt is up front again, but he is not operating with a complete engine at this point. Here they come off of the fourth corner. Waltrip is right behind him. We'll see how things occur here at the drop of the green flag, and it's pretty obvious that Earnhardt's engine just is not performing up to snuff as he lost several positions there at the drop of the green flag, and Darrell Waltrip moves back into the top spot.
What a dramatic move that Darrell Waltrip made coming down the front stretch. He figured out that Darrell Waltrip, or rather that Dale Earnhardt, simply wasn't going to get off the mark as quick as everybody else. He shot between cars and left Bill Elliott in his dust. And that has really helped Waltrip. He has some cushion right now, at least at this point in the race, between himself and the second running Bill Elliott.
So the Junior Johnson Budweiser cars are running together on the racetrack. But Neil Bonnet at number 12 is several laps down. The leader, however, is Darrell Waltrip in number 11. They run down the backstretch once again and into turn number 3.
I'll tell you, Bob, that is the strongest 7-cylinder car I've ever seen. If we ever have a league with 7-cylinder race cars, I'm going to find out from Junior Johnson how you make one go so fast. That car is quick considering the fact that it's down 1 cylinder.
One more lap, we will be 100 laps away from the finish. This is lap 266, and 367 will make up this race. Now, Bill Elliott challenging for the lead on Darrell Waltrip.
Bob, it looks like this time everybody made some pit stops underneath the last caution flag that involved Ricky Rudd. It looks like this time Bill Elliott may have just the faster preparation of the car than what Darrell Waltrip has. Here comes Elliott trying the inside of Darrell Waltrip going into turn number 1. No, not quite enough room. Remember, we're at Darlington. And remember how narrow the groove gets at 150, 160 miles an hour. You got to slow down going into the corners here. The brakes get a lot of use at Darlington. It's not like floating her in on a super high bank speedway. It's a real different, delicate touch here at Darlington, trying to figure out just how slow can I get around the turns and still go faster than the guy directly in front of me and the guy directly behind.
Just like last week, it is Ford against Chevy. It was that way in Bristol last weekend with Dale Earnhardt and Ricky Rudd, and it's Chevy Waltrip against Ford Elliott in this one this afternoon at Darlington. So we'll be back with more live coverage from the Transouth 500 after these messages. Stay with us. All right, thank you, Sharon. The crowd is still here despite the threat of rain and rather cool temperatures for this time of year. It's in the 60s here and a pretty stiff breeze, but nevertheless, the crowd is still here waiting for the final 95 laps or so of this race. Well, let's look at some winning percentages for active drivers. In his career, Richard Petty has won nearly 21% of the races that he has participated in. David Pearson, a little over 18, and Darrell Waltrip, 18.5. Cale Yarborough has won 16% of the races that he's participated in his career, and Bobby Allison, 13. Now, most recently, during the period of 1981 through 85, Waltrip with over 29% winning percentage. Cale Yarborough was 17, Bobby Allison was 16.7, and Richard Petty 6.3. Now, during the period of 1976 through 1985, Cale Yarborough had the best winning percentage at 22.7, Waltrip with 22.3, Allison almost 13%, and Richard Petty a little over 8%. Some interesting statistics there for you about the drivers, some of the drivers that are participating in the race today.
Yeah, Bob, to amplify just a tad more on that, you saw a lot of 24, 25, 26%. David Pearson in a decade from 1966 to 1976 also won almost 30 of the races, that 30% of the races that he was entered in. That's when he racked up most of his 105 wins. Bobby Allison had a similar hot streak, you might say, from 1967 to 1972 when he won well over 15% of the race. But the statistics show you that Darrell has been so dominant in recent years, and the thing that impresses me is that the competition is so keen and is so stiff. And Darrell has done exceptionally well. And also you look back to Junior Johnson. Robert Junior Johnson, I tell you, he has really done the job through the years of Grand National Stock Car Racing. I guess when you think of ownership, when you think of legend, the first name that comes to your mind in terms of a driver, owner, a builder, and a designer, Junior Johnson.
There is Kyle Petty in the number 711 Ford. He is in 14th position and is 4 laps down to the field. He is also the driver of one of the Fords here in this race this afternoon, and we had a very interesting conversation with Kyle Petty, among other things, racing with his father.
We understand that through the years, Richard Petty tutored you as to the ins and the outs, especially at a place like Bristol. But a week ago after the race, you had to do a little tutoring of your own.
Well, he's always been pretty hard on me. I remember after the first couple of races I run, we'd go in the locker room or to take a shower after the race, and he'd ask me where I'd been. And, you know, I've been out there trucking around just like he had. But lately, everywhere we've been, after the races were over, we'd be in the dressing room, I'd be taking a shower, and he'd tell me the only person that got in his way all day long was me. And, you know, I said, man, I hadn't seen him. I've been laughing at him lately. But we were up at Bristol, and he came in the locker room or the dressing room after the race and was coming out of the shower, and his tongue was hanging out, which mine was too. I was about half sick. And I told him, I said, you know, I had a pretty good race today, even though I was sick, but the only guy that got my race in my way all day long was Richard Petty. I said, I thought I was going to have to spin him a couple of times. He didn't appreciate it too much, but maybe he'll stay out of my way down here.
There's Kyle Petty in 14th position. Of course, his father, Richard, retired quite early in this event. Well, while we were updating you on the world of sports in Sports Center, we did have Bill Elliott move into the lead around Darrell Waltrip. He took the lead on lap 271. That was 14 laps ago, and Bill Elliott is stretching out the lead. Let's go down to Dick Berggren, who is in the Tim Richmond pit.
While some teams have gone to using computers to keep track of their tires and stagger and how they work, Tim Richmond's crew members that are in charge of tires are right now doing it the old-fashioned way. They're arguing with each other. They've got pen in hand, paper, and they're tearing sheets of it up, and they're trying to figure out what the right size is going to be for the last set. Maybe it's forward progress.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe it is. About a full straightaway length advantage now for Bill Elliott over Darrell Waltrip. We have had 20 lead changes here this afternoon among 8 different drivers. And the outcome of this race is still certainly a lot up in the air, although Bill Elliott has the lead right now. We'll be right back. Seventh place, Jeff Modine in the Levi Garrett Chevrolet is in for a pit stop. With now a little over 70 laps to go. There goes Jeff back out onto the racetrack.
He's the only guy, Bob, who is in the top 25 all-time earnings in terms of dollars who has raced in less than 100 races. So he has really maximized his performance in terms of his career in Grand National Stock Car Racing. The only guy in the top 25 all-time dollars won who has been in less than 100 races.
And running in 9th position, 2 laps down, is Phil Parsons. Now, of course, Benny dropped out of the race several laps ago because of a right front tire problem that tore up the suspension on the car. But Phil Parsons, 27-year-old brother of Benny, is doing quite well this afternoon. Now, you'll recall last week he was in the number 17 Hamby car, and he drives that car on the short tracks, but on the faster tracks and the super speedways, he's in this Skoll Chevy.
You know, earlier we were talking about race drivers being athletes. You know, something this guy told me this winter when we were at the St. Louis Auto Racing Fan Club banquet. He bowled a 300 game once. I tell you, that kind of impresses me. He also follows professional bowling pretty regularly and religiously on television. He knew a lot of the names and a lot of the personalities. And Phil was a very avid bowler when he was younger, and even at one point, kind of the middle of his mind, not the back or not the front, that maybe he ought to go on the professional bowling tour. But not a whole lot of people in terms of the percentage of the people in this country who can say that they have bowled a 300 game. Now, he told me that it wasn't during regular league game, it was during practice, but he had witnesses and it was documented.
I was going to say, nobody saw it.
No, he said he had witnesses and somebody else is keeping score.
There's the leader, Bill Elliott. By the way, his last lap was 153.387 miles an hour. You compare that with his qualifying speed of 157. Now, nice turn at the end of the straightaway as far as speeds are concerned. Now they'll get up there around 170 miles an hour or so. And then, of course, back off and brake heavily for the turns. There is second place Darrell Waltrip. And there are only 3 cars now on the lead lap. The other 2 besides Elliott and Darrell Waltrip, Tim Richmond. And Terry Labonte is for the lap now.
Bill Elliott, the #1 money winner of the 1985 season. There is Dale Earnhardt down on a cylinder. Remember, he had dropped 1 lap down to the leaders. We got him running unofficially, I guess, in 5th position. But we were mentioning that Bill Elliott has won $288,000 already this year. It looks like he's going to win quite a few more thousand this year. Dick Berggren is down in the pits.
Jeff Bodine's team apparently has very much taken to heart the concept that Darlington racetrack is too tough to tame. They've got enough stuff here to virtually rebuild the whole front end. Lower control arms, hubs, spindles, upper control arms, panhard rods, drive shafts, brakes. They can rebuild almost the whole car. They've even got a rear end sitting here just in case they might need it. Bob?
Looks like a junkyard down there, Dick.
Well, I've been monitoring their progress for the last 150 laps. And I'll tell you, Bob and Dick, they've used just about every one of those parts. They have almost rebuilt that car. They've had some problem they have been searching for underneath the Levi Garrett #5 machine, or they've had a lot of problems that they found solutions for. But they have been working feverishly on that car, actually putting it up on jacks almost every time they come into the pits.
That was a very good indication of how much of a lead Bill Elliott has on Darrell Waltrip. And Larry, I see no reason to believe that if this car holds together that Bill Elliott won't win easily. Meanwhile, Earnhardt has pulled behind the wall, and they're going to jack that car up on the right side and take a further look at it. But certainly a tough afternoon for Dale Earnhardt, who led many laps in this race.
And Dale Earnhardt's going to have to use a different jack because on that last pit stop, while it looked a little leisurely, here's the problem. The jack broke. So they've got to go back to their old-fashioned jack, the one that's a little heavier. Remember the feature we did at Bristol? And now he's behind the wall. We'll check on it and get back to you.
Thank you, Jack, for the report on the jack from the Dale Earnhardt pit. We're nearing the 300 lap mark. We will complete 300 laps and a couple of more. Bill Elliott is dominating at this point, at least, in the Coors Ford. Bob Jenkins, Larry Newber, Jack LaRue, and Dick Berggren at the Transouth 500 in Darlington, South Carolina. One of our many stops on Auto Racing 85. The next stop will be next Sunday afternoon. We'll have live coverage of the Northwestern Bank 400 from North Wilkesboro, North Carolina. And there is Ron Bouchard in for a stop, more than a routine stop. The hood is up on that car.
I think they're just working on a setup, as a matter of fact, Bob. I think they're just jacking the weight around. I thought they might be going underneath the hood also because he hasn't been running quite the pace that we kind of expected him to run, but they're just working on the weight of that race car and trying to make it handle just a little better. Still, I think he's running up there in the top 10. Yeah, he's still up somewhere around there, back on the same lap with Phil Parsons and Bobby Allison.
All right, let's go to Jackie Arute, who's with Hard Luck Dale Earnhardt.
Dale, it was first 7 cylinders and now another problem in the suspension. What was the problem?
Well, we lost 7 cylinders. You know, lost a cylinder earlier. The car was running awful good. You know, we just sort of, you know, run along at our pace. You know, we did about like 1 or 2 for when we was leading the race, but they lost that cylinder and sort of had to sort of race easy, and then it broke the darn A-frame. So we got to fix that before we keep riding and mess around, break it all the way into and crash the car and tear it, you know, take a chance of hurting somebody else. So we don't fix it, try to go back out and ride a little more for points, you know.
Well, what's even worse is you can't get out of the car because you've got to stay hooked up to the radio to twist the wheel so they can fix it.
Yeah, you sort of got to listen and see what they might be, get ready, and, you know, you don't know how long it's going to take to fix it.
Well, Dale Earnhardt, a tough day for a tough customer.
Dale led 131 laps of this race, and he led as many laps yesterday in the late model sportsman race, and it's too bad that he doesn't have any more to show for his really good performance this weekend while his equipment held up.
Well, he has led 4 of the races so far this year, Bob, so that has been a front-running car. He's also finished, by the way, the last 4 races in a row, so it's going to be an elongated finish if they can make it, but looks like he's shooting for finish number 5 in a row.
Rusty Wallace is showing some damage on the right front of his race car. Nevertheless, Wallace still out there in competition, running in 5th position.
Well, they, of course, appeared on the circuit this year with a brand new sponsor, or at least what we thought was a brand new sponsor, the All You Guard people. As it turns out, they've been involved with Rusty on his short track car for a number of years. They actually make an antifreeze, and they actually supply a lot of other retail outlets. And by the way, for those of you who are short track fans, you probably noticed that this year the characteristic red of Rusty Wallace's short track cars is gone. Now it's black. The reason for that, you guessed it, sponsor All You Guard. That's something that they wanted to do, so they are also involved with him on the short track plan.
If he finishes 5th here today, he will duplicate his best performance of the year of 5th at Bristol. So we asked Rusty about being accepted on the Grand National circuit.
I didn't feel real comfortable when I first moved down south, although I liked the weather, the climate, the people, everything I was surrounded with, but I just didn't feel like I fit in. But as the year went on, I started running better. I got more friends and started talking to more people, and everything is doing fine right now. Sure, there's still more people I need to meet, some more crew chiefs and more of the media and people like that, but I'm getting along fine with everybody I've met, and hopefully I'm making a good name for myself down here.
He sure is. That was Rusty Wallace moving to the inside there of this year's top rookie candidate, Ken Schrader. The leader continues to be Bill Elliott from Dawsonville, Georgia. There he's passing Kyle Petty in turn number 3. We are 309 laps into this race and nearing the end. Waltrip is still second and Richmond third. We'll be right back with more in Darlington. We are back at the Transouth 500 in Darlington, South Carolina. Bill Elliott has about a 10-second lead on Darrell Waltrip at this point, and I'll tell you, for Bill Elliott, it looks good for a victory here today as we are just about 50-some laps from the finish. And really, it's been a rather uneventful day as far as a Transouth 500 is concerned. We have had 6 caution periods, but really only 2 crashes of any significance, or 3 actually. David Pearson was hard into the wall. So was Buddy Baker, who blew a tire and hit the wall. As Rusty Wallace comes in for a stop, you can see the damage on the right front of his car, and because of that, they're having trouble, and they're bringing a second jack in to help get the car up. And then Ricky Rudd's crash out in turn number 2. But aside from that, there hasn't been any major multi-car accidents that we have seen here in previous races at Darlington.
Bob, I don't know. Maybe I'm just gun shy because of the feature we just saw from Jack DeRoof, but it looked like the jack failed on that. I don't believe this. Last week it was steering wheels that were breaking, and now it's jacks. That's what it appeared to be.
Well, the owner of the Bill Elliott car is Harry Melling, and a very interesting person in the world of auto racing. Let's go down to Jack DeRoof, who's with Harry Melling.
Harry, you're a guy that came up from Jackson, Michigan, and came down to Georgia and picked up these Bill Elliott boys. You've really put the team together in the last couple of years.
Really, they've done all the work. I just sort of came along and helped them, and if we continue to do as well as we are right now, we might have a real good year.
The Elliots have always given a lot of credit to you. They said that you literally saved them and put them on top. How do you see it?
Well, it's really a two-street. I help them and they help me. So, they've really done all the work. We help put in the initial money, and now Coors has come through and they helped us along. So, it's really a two-race street.
What's your goal as a car owner, Harry? What's your goal as a car owner?
As any car owner, to win it all.
Well, he might just possibly win one here at Darlington today.
He has a 13-second lead now on Darrell Waltrip, so he continues to move away.
Bob, the pattern of this team this year seems to be they either win or crash, and Bill Elliott doesn't just win races. He destroys the rest of the field. He just doesn't seem to hold back anything. He gets within 50 or 60 laps of the finish, and he wins big every time that he wins. The guy has won more money than anybody else this year, and his stock in life is rapidly rising.
One of 3 rookie candidates this year, as we now move to our segment where we tell you exactly who's out there and who's doing what. This is Don Hume from Charlotte, North Carolina. He's driving for James Hilton in this number 49 car, and they have picked up a major sponsor, Harper Cleaner Hands Formula. And Don is looking for big things this year on the Winston Cup trail.
This doesn't look like a James Harvey Hilton car because, well, it doesn't look like a James Harvey Hilton car. This is the first time out for the brand new car colors and also the first time that Donahue has been here.
The leader, Bill Elliott. And Tim Richmond has moved into second place, moving by Darrell Waltrip. So Richmond, who ran so well when he tried to get a lap back, and then did get the lap back, has been kind of running in the shadows, so to speak, for the last few laps, but now begins to move up toward the front again. Now remember, there's about a 13-second difference between first and second position, so he's got that far to go. Nevertheless, caution could close that distance, and we may see Tim Richmond in the winner's circle after all.
Bob, he's got one heck of a long ways to go to catch Bill Elliott. Even if he catches him, he's definitely got a tiger by the tail at that point because we've seen how strong Elliott has been today. But remember a race a couple of years ago at North Wilkesboro? Richmond was kind of running in the same situation. There happened to be a late yellow flag. He went into the pits, as did all the other leaders, with about 25 laps to go. And lo and behold, Tim Brewer, who was the crew chief in the car at the time, got Tim Richmond out with the rest of the crew before all the other leaders, and they simply couldn't catch Tim Richmond. Nobody expected him to win, but all of a sudden, as we got down the last 10 laps of the race, there was an insurmountable lead for Tim Richmond.
Let's go down to Jack Aroot, who has more on the Rusty Wallace story.
Larry and Bob, you are absolutely correct. Jack is down here with another broken jack. This one from the car number 2 of Rusty Wallace. It broke, as you thought, when he came in on the last pit stop. So jacks are busting everywhere this week.
Jacks are busting out all over, I guess that's what you can say. 321 laps now completed, and Bill Elliott continues to dominate the field. We'll be back with more from the Transouth 500 in a moment.
I'm with Barry Dodson, crew chief for Tim Richmond. Barry, can you do anything on the last pit stop to catch the leader, Elliott?
Well, Dick, we're going to put a little bite in the car, and we're changing the stagger around, but I would say to catch Bill Elliott and try to do it on a pit stop, you'd have to have probably the fastest pit stop in racing history. We're just going to give it our best shot.
That means they're going to stick the wrench through the back window, and they're going to adjust the springs on the car, and they're also going to change a couple of tires on that final pit stop.
You got to admire, though, the job that Tim and the crew has done here this afternoon because he has overcome a couple of major obstacles to run in second position. Bill Elliott is the leader. This will be his third win of the year if he can hold on. He was the winner of the Daytona 500. He dominated that race, just left everybody in his wake. And he was also the winner of the race at Atlanta earlier this year. And Larry, as you indicated, the other 3 finishes that he has had have not been all that great, but they've been mainly because of accidents. He was 22nd at Richmond, 29th at Rockingham, and 11th at Bristol last week.
Well, Bill Elliott has been opening up that distance between himself and the rest of the field, Bob. And here comes Bill down the front stretch. And I think in about a second here, we're going to show you a pan back. There goes Bill Elliott going across the start-finish line now. Here comes Tim Richmond. We're still waiting. Ho-hum coming out of the 4th turn. We're still looking for Tim Richmond to come around. You can see that the lead is more than 10, 11, 12 seconds. Here comes Tim Richmond finally out of the 4th turn, we think, down the front stretch, across the finish line. And there he is. You can see how far Tim Richmond has got to go in these last 50 laps or so if he wants to catch the high-flying, wild Bill Elliott. Here comes Bill Elliott coming in for a pit stop.
He is pitting, and this will be his final routine pit stop of the day. We were just about to say that the leader should be pitting very soon.
Bill Elliott is in the pits, and they've elected to put brand new rubber on the right side. Now, that's a little bit different than what we had expected, but you heard Dick Bergeron talk about the fact that they were still searching for the right combination. He's off and away in a good stop.
Jack, it was a 13.7-second pit stop for Bill Elliott. Now, remember, tire change can definitely mean the difference in winning and losing. Last week, when Earnhardt decided to change one side and Rudd the other, and it spelled the victory for Dale Earnhardt. So this race is far from over, although we've got about 48 laps to go. And here comes Darrell Waltrip, who is running in 3rd position into the pits.
Yeah, we're probably outside of the window yet where Bill Elliott can really start counting his money. And I'll tell you, you can do a good job on the tire selection in terms of the stop, but you can also do a bad job. And I'll tell you, if you get a bad set of tires, a 13, 14-second lead, which Bill Elliott had, is not all that much on this racetrack with 50 laps to go. Darrell Waltrip also changing outside rubber on that car.
Yeah, it was a 13.7-second pit stop for Bill Elliott and just a little over 14 seconds for Darrell Waltrip. So Bill was in a little bit in and out a little bit quicker. Now Tim Richmond, who is right there on your screen and who is lapping Darrell Waltrip, will have to come in for a pit stop very shortly.
Yeah, he right now is the leader of the race, but that's only temporary because everybody is due one more pit stop, and Tim looks like he's beginning to dart that nose down low. I think he's coming in this time around.
He is pulling to the apron of the track, and Tim Richmond moves into his pit area. We'll see how his pit stop compares with Waltrip and Bill Elliott.
Remember, both of the other front runners changed right side tires. You might expect them to track of this type of configuration. Everybody goes to the right side rubber. That seems to give you the best bite, really, when you get the new rubber on. These tires have probably been sitting behind the wall waiting for this moment. There is no strategy in terms of which tires you put on this time. You put on your best one. Tim Richmond really came in quite on an angle on that stop. Obviously did not affect the performance of the pit crew.
Yeah, it looks like he may have slid into his pit area and got the front end of the car out just a little bit. So the first three cars are in for their final pit stops. We'll be back in a moment. With 339 laps completed, here are the top 10 in the Transouth 500. Elliott, the leader. Waltrip is second. Tim Richmond third. A lap down is Terry Labonte in fourth, and 2 laps down in fifth place is Neil Bonnet. Then the 6 through 10 standings. Bill Parsons, Bobby Allison, Jeff Bodine, Lake Speed is 9th, and Ron Bouchard is in 10th position. So we go to the closing stages of this race here. The question is, can Bill Elliott continue to hold on? Well, we'll find out. We'll be right back. Bill Elliott leads the Transouth 500 here at Darlington, South Carolina. Next weekend, we'll be at North Wilkesboro for another Grand National race. And as we continue to bring you the best auto racing in the world, the Portuguese Grand Prix will be coming up in a couple of weeks with Jackie Stewart and John Vizignano. That is next Sunday morning. So be with us for the Portuguese Grand Prix here on ESPN as we bring you live 14 Formula One races in 1985.
You know, Bob, the last few minutes, while Bill Elliott has been just running away with this race, we've been tuning in on some of the other drivers who are relatively new to the Grand National Circuit, Don Hume, Rusty Wallace. If you consider a home state as where a particular driver's driving career began, now a lot of guys like Benny Parsons grew up in the South, then moved north, now they moved back to the South to continue their racing career. But if you think of where the race driving career began, we had 13 different states represented in the 16 fastest qualifiers here today. We look at Bobby Allison. There's a guy who was among those who actually has an unusual home state as far as where his driving career started. Bobby Allison started driving down in Miami, Florida, so he made up one of those 13 different states among our 16 first starters. Bobby's had the kind of day that, well, he would not necessarily like to just forget, but it certainly hasn't been the kind of day that is the normal for him. Had some problems this year finishing races, but today they haven't had any problems that have been terminal. They just haven't been able to go the distance at top speed and run with the leader. So it's a gratifying day, and apparently they've solved some problems that they've been dealing with for the earlier part of this season, but they haven't been able to go as fast as they normally can.
Allison is shown as 7th position. His best finish of the year to date, a 5th during the Atlanta 500. Last year, he was 20th in this Transouth 500 and in the Southern 500 last fall here at Darlington. And a car into the wall. That's Don Hume. Car 49 spins and tags the wall up in turn number 2, and this brings out another yellow.
Well, this place will just lull you to sleep if you're a race driver, and that's probably what's happened to Don Hume. He's been running so smoothly all day long, and you begin to think, well, maybe this place isn't so tough after all. But as Tim Richmond and Bill Elliott, among others, have told us this week, you lose one moment of concentration and bang, you've been had.
Don Hume, rookie candidate on the Winston Cup trail. There's a good look at Don. He got a lot of experience in racing as far as working on cars is concerned, working for Sherman Armstrong out in Winchester, Indiana, when Sherman used to build and race Indy cars and sprint cars. Don hopes to walk off with the Rookie of the Year award this year in the Grand National Circuit.
Well, Bob, nobody has to make any more pit stops, but let's see if they do come in. I would imagine that Bill Elliott, and there he comes in, he's probably going to set the pace for everybody to follow. If he comes in and puts on fresh tires.
Tim Richmond is also.
Everybody's going to think, well, we've got to keep pace with this guy because this is the one to beat. So Elliott does make the decision to come in.
And not only is Tim Richmond going to come in, but here comes Darrell Waltrip. So the 3 cars on the lead lap are in for a change of rubber. Elliott, the first to go out.
I'm a little surprised, Bob. I have a feeling that if I was down in the Elliott crew, I would have given a little serious consideration to staying out there. But as we indicated, that if he comes in, that pretty much dictates what everybody else has to do.
That's a slow pit stop for Darrell Waltrip. There was some confusion at the front end of the car, and he was a little slow getting out of the pits, but is now back out there. And of course, won't lose very much because we are under yellow. With 344 laps, we're under yellow because of an incident up in turn number 2 involving Don Hume. We'll be right back. All the leaders have been in for another pit stop during this caution period. The top 5 at this point: Elliott the leader, Richmond running second, Darrell Waltrip third, Terry Labonte fourth. Terry, incidentally, the leader in Winston Cup points, and Rusty Wallace is running in 5th position as we've completed 346 out of 367 laps. And since we do have this opportunity, we're going to bring you another commercial break and then be back with racing when we resume. You're watching the Transouth 500 live coverage from Darlington International Raceway. We'll be right back. Cleaning up the Don Hume accident over in turn number 2. And the top 5, Elliott, Richmond, Waltrip, Labonte, and Bonnet. And now the 6 through 10 standings show Jeff Bodine, Rusty Wallace, Phil Parsons, Lake Speed, and Joe Rudman. Something is going on with the Waltrip car. He was in and had a long stop, came in again. They raised the hood on the car, and I frankly don't know what's going on.
Well, Bob, another interesting aspect, they changed the left side tires in the race car, very reminiscent of last week when the Dale Earnhardt crew decided to change left-hand side tires, whereas Ricky Rudd went for the outside tires. But after they made the stop where they changed the left side rubber, they came back in the next time around, went in underneath the hood, and a crewman came running out with what appeared to be a bottle or something. Jack Arute is down in the area. Maybe he can fill us in on that just a couple of seconds later here.
The problem out on the racetrack, gentlemen, is an axle has fallen out of one of the race cars. One of the NASCAR technical inspectors hopped over that brand new wall and has put it back on pit road.
Set up again. Yeah, we see the part now in the pits, but we're about to go green, apparently. The pace car's light is off, and they are in their 2 abreast formation. Out in turn number 3, while Morgan Shepherd is the car low on the racetrack that appears to be coming in for a pit stop. The other cars out of the racetrack are high in the groove and standing on the gas. Here they come. 348 laps completed, and boy, Elliott got awfully high coming out of corner number 4, but is in the lead. Now Tim Richmond is right behind him, and we'll see if Bill can stretch out that lead again. There's Richmond in the other red car in 2nd spot.
And Waltrip is about in the 6th position in line there. There's Tim Richmond, 2nd place in the race, 2nd place on the track right now as they move down into turn number 3. Less than 20 laps to go. Can Bill Elliott maintain that dominance that we have seen so far all day long from him?
Doesn't appear to be pulling out to much of an advantage, at least at this point, over Tim Richmond. He has perhaps gotten 8 or 10 car lengths between himself and Richmond, but Elliott has looked strong for the last few laps.
Well, one half of the field is still in the race. We qualified 40 cars. We had about 44, 45 here. Some of the people who did not make the show. Earl Canavan attempted to qualify for this race. South Carolinian Jonathan Edwards, William Scott, another South Carolinian, and Mike Potter, normally very fast, a Tennessean. He also failed to qualify for the Transouth race here this weekend in Darlington.
Battle for 5th and 6th spot going on between Neil Bonnet in car number 12 and Rusty Wallace in number 2. You can see there is a car between them. That is Lake Speed, but Neil Bonnet, car number 12, in 5th spot. There is Lake Speed in 75. The third car is Rusty Wallace.
Mind you, again, we believe that Neil Bonnet is running maybe at 7.5 cylinders. Well, there's Lake Speed finding a way underneath Neil. He tapped him just ever so slightly in the back bumper and said, hey, I think I got the lane here. I'm coming on through. And then Lake slipped underneath. But Bonnet's car running well considering how much horsepower it must be down. Apparently it's down 1/8 of the horsepower, so you can see that it's significantly slower, at least on the dyno would be, than the other cars. But Neil has done a good job driving right. Look at him keep his nose right up there with everybody, moving to the high side of Terry Labonte, who also has been running very fast in recent laps. As a matter of fact, he's run all day, almost as fast as the leaders, although he lost a couple of laps earlier.
Now, Neil's teammate, Darrell Waltrip, and we told you about the problems that he might be encountering. Well,
Bouchard, I think, slowing. Oh, and Jeff Bodine almost swerves right into Rob Bouchard, but Rob Bouchard, something apparently going wrong with the race car.
I think maybe he made contact with somebody.
Yeah, the right side looks to be flattened out, and it may be body rubbing against the tires, but Bouchard comes down to the inside of the number 1 corner after slowing, going down the front stretch, and everybody's scrambling behind him to get around.
That was close. By the way, Rob Bouchard was running in 12th position when that happened. Here's what happened off of corner number 4. Yeah, he was a little sideways coming off the corner, and I think we're going to see him tap the outside wall. And then when he did that, of course, the car probably experienced some handling problems. He was unable to control it as well as he wanted to and did slow down. And that's when everybody had to get on the brakes and avoid running into the back of him. Bouchard coming around now for a stop. Ron running in 12th place when this happened.
I guess that's why you don't put a man on that camera.
Talking about Darrell Waltrip, we talked about the possible problems in that car, but he has moved back up into 3rd position and now is not too far behind Tim Richmond. Back with more in Darlington, South Carolina after these messages. Only 9 more circuits to go at this 1.3366 mile racetrack here at Darlington International Raceway, and the victory will be Bill Elliott's. There is the race for 2nd and 3rd, and Tim Richmond has his hands full now with Darrell Waltrip.
Yeah, he really does, Bob. Richmond has been in a big race, it seems like all day long with somebody. He's going to be a tired boy when this one is over. Everybody's made their final pit stop and allegedly has their best set of tires on the race car. But Waltrip is really challenging Tim Richmond. Now, they appear to be relatively close to Bill Elliott, but remember, we had a caution flag not too many laps ago, so it's not the fact that they've raced up that close to Bill, it's that Bill has raced away from them that far since the most recent caution flag and pit stops. You see the interval there coming out of turn number 4, that lone car right now crossing the start-finish line is your leader, Bill Elliott, and Richmond and Earnhardt, Richmond and Darrell Waltrip are just now crossing the start-finish line.
I don't really think we need to pick a winner, do you, Larry?
No, I don't think so, Bob. I'll tell you, I mentioned at the top of the show there wasn't any real clear-cut favorite here because even though Bill Elliott was the fastest qualifier, there's so much conversation about this racetrack whenever you come to Darlington. And he was the fast qualifier, but other people had qualified well. There was a lot of optimism up and down pit road on behalf of many, many teams. And you just didn't have that feeling like you had at Daytona earlier this year or in Atlanta that if Bill Elliott went the distance, he was an automatic winner. But I'll tell you, this has been a carbon copy, really, of both those races. It's been very easy, relatively speaking, for Bill Elliott.
And a change of 2nd position puts Darrell Waltrip ahead of Tim Richmond. Waltrip 2nd and Tim Richmond is 3rd. I would like to point out that yours truly was the only one of a whole group of people at dinner last night who predicted that Bill Elliott would win this race.
I don't remember that.
I didn't think you did. So really the battle is going to boil down to a 2nd position battle, it looks like, if Elliott can continue to hold on here. And Darrell Waltrip has suddenly come on to pass Tim Richmond and move into 2nd, but you can see how the interval is continuing to expand. And Bill Elliott is within now almost 5 laps. This will be lap 363. We'll have 4 more to go when he crosses the finish line.
Well, the Bill Elliott story, there you see him crossing the finish line, completing 1 more lap, is truly a very interesting one. So much has happened to this family and to this driver in the last 5 years. Their life has really changed a lot, and talking with Dan and Ernie Elliott earlier this week in the pits. It's changed a lot in the 1985 season. It used to be that it was a family going to races and everybody knew that they were competitive, knew that they were hardworking, but it's so different now because they're inundated with people from the press wanting to get comments, wanting to get photographs, wanting to get pictures. And before, when they had all the time in the world that they could garner to work on their car, now there are people constantly tugging at them. They have to almost seek out private times to work on their race car. There's so much more attention that's focused to Bill Elliott. And basically, my feeling has always been this is just a family that likes racing, wants to go and do some racing, and can't really be involved in all the politics and all the glamour and all the glory. Of course, that comes with the game, and everybody is willing to accept that, but it's changed so much for Bill Elliott. But by and large, this family has really kept all of this in good balance, and it's a real fine addition, whether he finishes first, fifth, 10th, or last. I'm very glad that they're involved in the sport of automobile racing because they're a nice kind of people, a nice family to have in the Speedway.
Less than 2 laps to go now. If Bill Elliott wins this race, it will be his 3rd of the year and his 7th career win in the Grand National circuit, and it will certainly also increase his point standings. He is currently 5th in the Winston Cup point standings, and now a battle once again for 2nd position as Richmond and Darrell Waltrip go side by side, and then Richmond sideways there out of turn number 4 as Buddy Arrington got a little bit in the way as those two raced for position. The white flag is out. We're on the last lap. We'll continue to watch this battle for 2nd position because Elliott is going to win this race with no problem, and it looks like that Waltrip is going to hold on for 2nd, but Richmond may challenge here in turns 3 and 4.
They're going to move up, Bob. I'll tell you, it looked like Tim may have had the line, but Buddy Arrington was there, and there wasn't anything Tim could do about it.
Here comes the win. Bill Elliott takes the checkered. He wins the race. 2nd position. Oh, it goes to Darrell Waltrip as Tim Richmond made one final bid, cutting to the low side of the racetrack to the inside, but Darrell Waltrip held him off 4 seconds by. It's a win again for Bill Elliott.
Well, I tell you wouldn't think that those guys would have that much energy left. It's been a long day. We've had a rain delay. Richmond particularly has had a lot of people to race with. There is Terry Labonte, who did a fine job finishing 4th in today's race after all those problems early in the race, but Waltrip and Tim Richmond really displayed some driving skills the last couple laps of this race.
And in 5th position was Rusty Wallace, who also drove a very fine race. Bill Elliott wins the Transouth 500 here at Darlington, South Carolina. We'll be back and have conversation with Bill in just a moment in Darlington. Our Winner's Circle interview is being brought to you today by Goodyear. Goodyear tires and Goodyear service for more good years in your car. To Victory Lane we go and Chacaroute with Bill Elliott.
Bill, this is getting to be a regular habit. Congratulations.
Well, I'll tell you what. This old Coors Melon Oil Pump Thunderbird just keeps right on digging. You know, and I can't stand up about all the people that really make this possible. You know, like Coors, Melling, Union, Goodyear, Champion.
The race itself, though, we had some reports from your pits that you went back to your original chassis setup.
Well, we messed around with it most of the day, and it was off and on all day long. You know, there when I was running Earnhardt was running really good. And when I didn't know if I could ever outrun Earnhardt or not, and we kept on running, and I don't know whatever happened to Earnhardt.
Some people say that in order to be an established true superstar in Grand National Racing, you've got to do 3 things. Win the Daytona 500, win one when you're hurt, and win a race at Darlington. Do you see it that way?
Well, I don't know. I'll tell you what, to win this race, as good as I'd run here in the past, it's amazing to me. You know, they said I started on the pole, would I ever do it? And I said, I don't know. You know, if a good Lord stayed with me and, you know, everything kept stay together, I felt like I could do it.
This is a family-run operation. When you get back to Dawsonville, Georgia, what are you going to do when you sit down and huddle together to go back over this?
Worry about North Wilkesboro. It's coming up next week.
Well, Darrell Waltrip is with Dick Berger in at the other end of pit road. Not quite Victory Lane, Dick, is it?
No, it's almost Victory Lane, though. Next best thing to it. Darrell, a fine run.
Oh, we had some problems throughout today, but I'm tickled to death to finish 2nd, and just like to thank the good Lord for a safe race, and congratulations to Bill and the Ford boys, and we'll just keep working. We gained a little today, I think. We run awful well.
How about your power steering? When did that go out on you?
I was running along there pretty good, and all of a sudden the power steering didn't go out. It ran out of fluid. We had a leak, And then on the last caution, the boys opened up the hood and put some fluid in it, and I was back running again. So I don't know how much effect that had on the race, but I'm happy to be second, and I just like to thank all of our sponsors, Bud and Goodyear and everybody that runs along with us. I really appreciate it.
Bob Jenkins?
All right, thank you. Congratulations, Darrell, and to Bill Elliott. And once again, we have seen power steering play a role in the final outcome. Last week, Dale Earnhardt wins without any power steering, and today, Darrell Waltrip finishes second without any power steering. So we'll summarize the race for you and run down the top 10 when we return with more of the Transouth 500 from Darlington. Our race summary showed that the time of the race was 3 hours, 58 minutes, and 8 seconds. The average speed, 126.295. We had 8 leaders and 22 lead changes, 7 caution periods for a total of 54 laps, and the winner, Bill Elliott, led a total of 136 laps.
Bob, you know, there was a lot of talk at the beginning of this year as the coming dominance of the Ford, particularly the Thunderbird body style. And I think I'm about ready to suggest that it's not necessarily the domination of the Ford as much as it is a domination of the Elliott family.
Let's review the top 10 finishers for you. Behind Bill Elliott in second spot was Darrell Waltrip, Tim Richmond third, Terry Labonte fourth, and Rusty Wallace fifth. In sixth position, Neil Bonnet. Seventh was Jeff Bodine. Phil Parsons finished eighth. Bobby Allison was ninth, and Lake Speed was 10th. The Transouth 500 has been brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? And by Levi Garrett Chewing Tobacco. Time after time, the quality comes through. And by the STP Corporation, on the world's racetracks and on the world's roads. Depend on STP, your car care company. Until we see you Thursday night on Speed Week and next Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock Eastern Time for live coverage of the Northwestern Bank 400 from North Wilkesboro. For Larry Newber, Dick Berger,